KBC Channel 1, we put people at the heart of events with our captivating weekly news features. Every day, we are breaking new grounds with informative, entertaining, and inspiring human interest stories. On Mondays, 9 p.m., we have The Cabinets. Tuesday, 9 p.m., we get inside the barracks for military tales. We delve in the world of cinemas and theater each Wednesday night. For the young and industrious, make a date with us every Thursday at 9 p.m. Fridays are dedicated for my culture. On Saturdays, we go back in time for history in perspective. And on Sundays, we get to know the process of how things are done and made. KBC Channel 1 News features a whole lot of wonderful viewing experience.
Hii shamba fanya hivi. Hii tunaweza usa.
Can you allow me to start with English and we go on? Good afternoon, morning. Achuki suku hii.
Huyu anajua, wewe ndio haujui. Na alikuwa ameniambia akipata kitu tunaenda kuosi nini? Futimbo. Ulikuwa uende World Cup.
Exactly.
Sasa hukuenda kwa nini?
Si kwenda kwa sababu ndege zilikuwa zimejaa mheshimiwa.
So iko wapi pesa?
Kwa ndege zilikuwa.
Wapi slip ya bank?
Sikupewa hiyo siku, lakini ni walisema niende nichukue taste.
Wewe mzee unakaa wewe ni mkora.
Wakamurio wanzenza.
Morwa Zenza tusimujui.
Zenza anakuambia Zenza ni ile wimbo ya Kili wanzenza.
Je, una habari ambao ungependa kuwasilisha kupitia KBC? Wasiliana nasi upesi kupitia barua pepe ya news@kbc.co.ke au piga simu kwa nambari 0723982654 au 0734780124.
The African Union Transition Mission in Somalia came into operations on the 1st of April 2022 after its authorization by the African Union and mandated by the United Nations Security Council, AU Peace and Security Council Resolution 2068 of 2022. The mandate of ATMIS is to fully implement the Somali transition plan. The multi-dimensional mission involves the military, police and civilian component in its mandate overview, which is to support the capacity building of the integrated Somali security and police forces, reduce the threat posed by Al-Shabaab, support peace and reconciliation efforts in Somalia, and conduct the phased handover of security responsibilities to Somalia. All this is done with the Somali forces taking the lead role. For the success of this mission that is supposed to run until December 2024, when the final exit is expected to occur by ATMIS forces, 5 countries, namely Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Djibouti and Burundi, have jointly contributed 18,586 troops to ATMIS for defensive and offensive mechanisms. These efforts are complemented by police contributing countries Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Uganda and Zambia, who also provide mentorship to the Somali police forces as well as helping in capacity building. The police unit has a force strength of 1,040. In our first day in Mogadishu, Somalia, we met with the force's Commandant Lieutenant General Diomeden Ndegeya. He says since its deployment, ATMIS has embraced tactics that will ensure the successful implementation of the transition plan.
Our effort is on holding the terrain by co-location of our FOB with Somali forces. We don't leave any forward operating bases when we don't see that Somalis are able to handle it defensively.
And all this is also being supported by the local forces and the support of the local population. So this is a game changer in Somalia. If it is replicated in all sectors, we will not have Al-Shabaab probably by end of 2023.
On the police side, we'll link up with contingent commander of the Kenya Police in the mission, Alex Munyao, who says their mentorship coupled with the civilian and military collaboration is slowly steering Somali police forces in the right direction.
We look at discipline and we look at accountability. We want the Somali police to reach a point where they can manage the internal security of this country independently.
ATMIS, military, police and civilian components are authorized to conduct several tasks. Among them, conduct joint simultaneous targeted offensive operations across all its 6 sectors, in coordination with the Somali security forces to degrade the Al-Shabaab and affiliates linked to ISIL. Configure ATMIS in terms of composition, structure, disposition and equipment to best hand over security responsibility of Somali security forces, support Somali security forces in clearing main supply routes, including recovered from Al-Shabaab, provide combat mentorship to the Somali National Army, enhance Somali National Army capacity to conduct civil military coordination activities, and ensure compliance with the rules and engagement of international humanitarian law, international human rights and all international best practices. The expected timeline of ATMIS assignment, which commenced on the 1st of April 2022, is 2 years and 8 months. This was arrived at following the assessment by the Security Council on its 4 phases guided transition. The phases begin with the reconfiguration stage, followed by jointly shaping and clearing operations and handing over of forward operating bases. This is then followed by phase 3, which is operations and handing over of the forward operating bases, and finally liquidation and withdrawal of ATMIS. Apart from the troops and police forces, ATMIS also boasts of 70 civilian staff, expected to increase to 85 from 1st of January 2023. The first drawdown of 2,000 security forces is expected on the 31st of December 2022.
Thank you for staying with us. Let's now take a look at what we have in the newspaper. So far, I only have one local daily. We'll get you the rest as when we get them. All right, so on the front page of the People Daily, Ruto's digital plan, we have Ruto's digital plan, bulk of government services to be available online in 6 months, over 100,000 kilometers of information superhighway to connect homes, businesses and institutions, as well as public documents to be digitized for ease of access by citizens. That some of the plans that the president is planning to articulate in the next 6 months. You can take a look at that story in details. And of course, we have got the big picture there. Nelly Cheboy named CNN Hero of the Year. The story here, an interesting bit, which says that the 29-year-old techpreneur, founder of TechLit Africa, fitted for creating computer labs for rural schools. Of course, she was fitted. Cheboy is the founder of a non-profit organization, TechLit Africa, who quit her software engineering job to create tech labs for Kenyan children in primary rural schools with refurbished computers. Congratulations to Nelly Cheboy. Back to the front page here again. Ruto outlines his plan for the next 6 months. Of course, the president, among other things, seeks to make housing more affordable and bring cost of basic commodities. apart from that, Kenya is ready to take off. That's according to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, assuring the nation. The Deputy President reiterates that Kenya Kwanza planned to deliver on its campaign pledges. He said that Kenyans must live as envisioned by the country's forefathers and freedom fighters who remain great and dear to every day because they shed their blood, and ahead is great work. Okay, that's according to the Deputy President. Of course, page 4 and 5, we have got full pictures there based on what happened yesterday. Wetangula conveys Ruto proposal to committees. Some of the considerations include 2/3 gender rule and establishment of the office of leader of the opposition. 3 House committees have been directed to consider President William Ruto's proposal to amend the constitution and the standing orders following his memorandum to Parliament 2 days ago. Now, Speaker Moses Wetangula, in a letter to lawmakers who are currently on recess, directed the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, that is JLAC, to the Joint Parliamentary and Ad Hoc Committee on proposals to amend the Constitution to entrench certain specialized funds and procedure, and House Rule Committee to undertake necessary public participation as required under Article 118 of the Constitution and submit reports on the same to the House. An interesting debate there which started sometimes last week when the Kenya Kwanza had a PG. These are some of the proposals, and they'll be taken in Parliament, and this system is taking shape pretty fast to establish that office of the opposition. Okay. You can also take a look at that story of Nelly Cheboy, the 29-year-old who bagged the CNN Heroes Award. All right, moving on quickly here before bringing in my guest. More Kenyans will fall into debt as cost of living bites. According to experts saying that the rising cost of commodities amid low income is pushing more cash-strapped Kenyans to borrow from scores of unregulated mobile-based loan apps. That is there. So make sure you spend wisely. And moving on, let me just get straight into the back page here and talk about some sports. Croatia dares to dream. Of course, they'll be meeting Argentina tonight in their 10 p.m. match as they step ahead towards the finals of the World Cup. And it's going to be an interesting match because, according to me, Croatia was considered an underdog in this match. But so far, they have given their snail pace but moving to the finals. It was tears and tears last week. It was tears and more tears. Okay, so that's as far as that is concerned. We'll be getting you more update on our local dailies when we have them on our desk. But right about now, let me introduce Abdullahi Alas Ahmed, who is a political analyst and governance expert, to give us a feel on what we are going to discuss today. Abdullahi, good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. Good morning.
Happy Jamhuri Day. Still in the mood, right?
Yeah, I was there yesterday.
You're there? Okay. What stood out for you?
First of all, the power of the state was very visible. There was relaxed mood in terms of how the security were handling Kenyans. They were not rough. They were different, operators of the security in terms of records code, the different sections of the military. A lot of discipline. The weather was good because there was no rain, too much sun.
Yeah.
So Kenyans were generally, it was a very relaxed ambient atmosphere. And it was my first national event.
Really?
In my life. I have never gone to Jamhuri Days or any celebration in this country apart from yesterday.
That must be of some sentimental value to you.
Yes, so why I did that, when I was young, back in Mandera, Moi used to come, Kibaki, those things never used to interest me. But now, being a journalist, being a person who has now studied governance, it was important for me to hear from the horse's mouth and then feel that atmosphere. And after listening to him, I saw a very disciplined president, generally very particular with his dressing, very particular with his style.
Yes.
The order of the whole event was timely because I was there as early as 8:30. The president was there at 10, unlike his predecessor, who used to come at maybe 11 or 11:30 or thereafter. So the whole thing was, even the speeches, it was only the governor of Nairobi, Sakaja, the deputy president, and so the mood was that they allowed more entertainment. You know, there were cultural people presenting their songs, so it was more of a celebration of a country than politicians lecturing Kenyans on what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
Because the whole speech was like 3 people, and then there were prayers from. So I think Kenya, what I saw yesterday there is that if we take the discipline of our forces, especially the military, and then use that in our lifestyle, both at the private life and the governance mechanics, then Kenya is a country with huge potential, and management of resources is what is. We lack leaders who care about this country, and who will prudently manage our resources. So, 59 years down the line, after those speeches, we are still talking about what Kenyatta spoke about: inequality, how to reduce poverty, how to access healthcare, how to access clean water. I told you sometimes back I traveled to the side of Turkana, you know, Suguta Valley, Baragoi, that side. Kenya is an equal country. It's a country where 9,000 control 99.9% of the wealth of this country. So generally, we have all the reasons to celebrate. Our people fought for this independence. Kenya is not in the right track. If you look at the latest poll, 85% of Kenyans believe that Kenya is going to the wrong direction. Yeah.
Okay. And based on what the president said yesterday, part of the his plan for the country is the issue of encouraging farmers to access subsidized fertilizer. Of course, he talked about the 10 million bags of different assorted food products, including maize, to be imported, and of course, together with the other private sector, to allow the importation of 6 million bags of fertilizer. If you look at what the president said, and of course his manifesto and the Kenya Kwanza agenda, someone would say that the president is still articulating his agenda even post-election.
Well, I think what needs, first of all, the issue of investing in agriculture. It's because agriculture is contributing, 65% of job markets, where people get jobs, and close to 25% of our GDP. So how that policy, it's a good thing. What the president said is a good thing, that he's going to have it in 3 phases, where fertilizer is going to be subsidized. 1.3 farmers will access, eliminating brokers and cartels. From reducing fertilizers from 7,000 to 3,500 is good. Now, the task the president has, whatever he said during the campaign or whatever he's saying now, what we want is, how are we going to actualize that? How is my father, who has 6 farms, going to access ploughing machines? How is he going to access seeds? How is he going to access these fertilizers back in Mandara North? How is he going to be trained on modern farming? If you go to some part of this country, people are still using hoe and djembe. Well, we have very, sophisticated, simple machine that come from China and Singapore and these areas. So I think what the president needs to do is, how do we invest in the equipment for the agriculture, not only fertilizers, so that production can be very high. If someone can plant his farm, 1 acre or 2 acre or 3 acres, within less than a day or half a day, because the land is well ploughed, fertilizers are already provided, seeds are available, the training is there. We use greenhouse farming, or because of shortage of water in the country, rainfall's not coming, we make use of drip irrigation or splash drip irrigation. So all these things require policies I'm sure the Ministry of Agriculture has those policies. We need men and women who are willing, especially Linturi now. CS Linturi has the burden on his shoulder that this country needs to feed itself. And for us to allow Kenyans to feed themselves, as the president said, we need to do all the things he said.
Yes.
Now, all those things require money in policy. So how are we going to actualize them? I know the budget is currently operating belongs to the previous administration that he was the deputy president. His budget is coming up. I mean, it's already in progress because budgets begin by February every year. And then this September, already the work has started. So the budget for 2023, 2024, it's already in progress, in motion. It's processes because it's more than 8-9 stages. So once we go into January, he will be talking about his budget. Now, he needs to invest in that so that the 47 counties, partly agriculture is devolved. I mean, it's part of the devolved system. So how do we also make sure that the national government gives extra money to the county and the Ministry of Agriculture, but those resources are managed well from the coffers of the counties, and then farmers are not only given fertilizers and seeds, but also trained on modern farming. Yes.
Let's go back and talk about what happened yesterday. It was a Jamhuri Day with a different, of course, for the first time we saw a celebration with a theme.
Yes.
Innovation and technology. Perhaps this sends a different signal in the way things are going to be run moving forward, because when you have, initially we would have a celebration without a theme, but this time around we had a theme: innovation and technology. And of course we saw what the president said. The attendees also signed for the Arizona Scholarship Technology and the ICT training. What did you say about that as a journalist?
Well, first of all, I am also waiting for my Arizona enrollment because I was there.
Oh, you logged in?
No, I'm waiting for it. I don't know how it's going to be done.
Okay.
But investing in ICT is a good thing, but it's not the biggest employer in this country. It is a good thing to invest in technology. It is not the biggest employer. The biggest employer is teaching. Lecturers, administrators, secondary, high school, primary teaching. So we must invest in teaching first. Because for you to even get marketplace for IT, you need to produce graduates. So as we do investment, I'm not against ICT, because right now it is easier to apply for a passport online. I did that with my East African passport. And the problem is now, when you bring, like a case when I was renewing my passport, I applied to renew my passport in 2020. And I got it this year, early this year. Because what happens is, as the president talks about cartels and brokers, there are people in Nyayo House who want you to pay so that they process your passport. Yet, it is their duty to process the passport because that's their work. So, as a journalist, I could see they wanted money. And I've applied online. So what I did is, I went to Embu and then processed my passport to take to Nairobi. Then I tweeted immigration that I applied for my passport in 2020. Every time I come there, it's either postponed or there was COVID or there's a matter. Now, why should I wait for renewing my passport for over 2 years? And within 5 hours, I received a text from immigration that your passport has been processed and it's supposed to offer the GPO. I only paid 500 shillings to collect it. So, the people manning these computers, how disciplined are they in making sure that they process documents for Kenyans? So, if you invest in technology, but the people meaning the infrastructure and the ecosystem of our ICT are waiting for kickbacks and money so that they process a birth certificate, a passport, or a lost ID for you, then how is the president going to achieve effective and efficient managed information technology infrastructure and ecosystem under his watch? So the Ministry of Interior and the guys in charge of immigration, the guys in charge of licensing of DCI or whatever it is, all these people must know that once I pay the money to the government, I need to come for my passport or my documents ready. I'll give you an example of what one of my friends, Dr. Salah Abd Sheikh, wrote on Facebook, that a Finnish, someone from Finland and someone from Kenya who are outside their countries applied for lost passports. The guy in Finland got it within 14 days. He filled it online, it went to Finland, it was processed, and then it was I agree that the processing of passports must be done from one center to not allow, aliens or other people getting passport. But now the process is as important as the end product.
Yeah.
So the Kenyan guy who was waiting to get his passport is still waiting for it for 2 years. While the guy who's a Finnish from Finland got it within 14 days. What does that tell you about our processes and our governance in this country, that people are still corrupt? So regardless of how much, I saw a president who is very enthusiastic about these issues. But now, if the government you're leading is not disciplined, if your government that you're leading is not compassionate and have passion for their jobs to serve Kenyans, and they're waiting for kickbacks, when you're paying them 6-figure salary, 7-figure salary, 5-figure salary, yet they expect me to pay them like in the biggest. I want to tell the president and the people who are handling his mechanics, immigration is a rotten place. Nyayo House is rotten to the core. People are making billions and millions through corruption. Kenyans are paying money to collect their passports. Kenyans are paying money to get their birth certificate. Kenyans are paying for everything. Besides the government taxing them on even water or every receipt you buy. Oh no, you've seen there's a tax, VAT. So I would like the president to crack the whip on the public service people working under him. If it is Mandera County government, the county government has a governor. The national government has the representative called the county commissioner. The county commissioner must know why my mother, who applied for her lost ID, did not get. They should be accountable her ID in 2 years.
Okay.
So you see, so improving infrastructure of the ICT is good.
Yes.
But it is not the biggest employer.
That sends a very chilling effect, because the president said that 85% of all government and of our operations and
are going to be
digitized. But when you talk of just processing a renewal of a passport taking 2 years, and 85% of all government operations and services will be digitized, this one sends a very chilling effect down the spine of Kenyans watching.
I know, but the president also needs to have an audit section within the ICT infrastructure, so that Victor Olo, who is in charge of processing passport, has a workload or backlog of over 10,000 passports. And then you ask this person applied for this passport 4 months ago. Why is it in the system? So unless we have that, and people know their auditors who will audit this thing, he can even have a machine in State House. And then he says, what is the process of passports in the country? What's happening with the, he needs to have secretariat.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be him. But the message that the president, I am not going to tolerate. He doesn't talk about corruption, by the way.
Okay.
I am not going to tolerate people who are going to stall services because they want kickbacks.
Let's take a break. And we come back, we're still going to circle back and talk about the issues that were raised yesterday. The president talking about digitization of government services. That's e-services that will be on government e-platform. Remember, we are still also waiting for Gabriel Kagombe, who is a member of parliament of Gatundu South, to join us on set. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with more.
Minutes remaining in regular time. Good header out. This will begin out for a foul. Lazio Vitinha gets a yellow card as well.
The second half substitute on the Portugal side gets himself into the referee's books.
Chedira, he already has a yellow card.
That's a red
card.
card.
Oh, well, I think the referee was just thinking that he's a little bit too casual in his tackles. I just talked about worrying about what he's doing at the moment. And Chedira gets 2 yellow cards in the shortest of times. Has been sent off. Oh, there it is.
Quite unnecessary from Chedira, knowing that he had another yellow card. That was a big risk.
Well, I just said it that at this time you...
ilayska ummadda.
Now 7:35, we're still waiting for Gabriel Kagombe, Member of Parliament, Gatundu South constituency, to join us on set. Mheshimiwa, you're running out of time. All right, okay. But nonetheless, we'll still have to run the show. I have Abdullahi Ahmed Alas, who is, of course, a journalist by training as well, governance expert and a political analyst. We talked about the issue of ICT that the president outlined yesterday. Let's talk about the issue of, yes, you have the ICT, the infrastructure is another. The president talked about creating 100,000 kilometers of highway and, you know, connecting the network across the country. Achievability is one thing, getting it done is also another thing.
I think the Communication Authority of Kenya and the Ministry of ICT, led by our group brother Owalo, must fast track on how we get network across Kenya. ICT depends on networks. For you to access an online, then you have to have a network providing, whether you're buying data or you're going to, you know, a cyber, then you need to have network, you know, in most of places of the country. But in the same breath, you will rather have these services in Mandera or Homa Bay or Busia or Turkana, you know, Lodwar, than travel to Nairobi. So the president's ambition is a good thing, but the ambition is to have a plan and how to execute that plan. And that now falls under the cabinet secretaries, falls under the permanent secretaries, under the directors in those different ministries, both especially in the communication. So ICT will improve the lives of Kenyans by cutting cost, either in traveling or even because when you come to Nairobi, if you don't have a relative, you'll spend money on a lodge. Yeah. So it is good to decentralize ICT. Thank you very much. But it requires network. You see, just like the president said, we need to have at least a high court in every county. Yeah. So that people of Mandera don't travel either to Garissa or to Nairobi to file a case. The same with other parts of the country. So all these things, the concerned departments must now take what the president has said and then look, if there are no policies in place, that policy develops from an idea. So it's time to develop the policies on how to achieve those things. How are they going to be effective? Every project in a project cycle management law, you don't get 100% in the first few years. So if you can have the ICT infrastructure devolved, as in decentralized, and then in the first year we get a 50% pickup, that is a success in Kenya. Yes. Because at least in my village, every home has someone who has finished class 8 or form 4 with the phone. So the information will still reach parents and the society. That way now, people can travel even to the sub-county. And by the time this ICT infrastructure comes, it will open up business for people in the ICT sector. So cyber caves will be coming up. you see, so that they provide these services. So in Lamu, in Banisa, in Wajir North, in Butte, cybers will be coming up because 1, there is electricity, 2, there is a network, 3, they can offer the service because they are clients who want these things. And most of the people who want these services are not people you will say are literate. So through that, cyber caves will be making money. Counties can have an ICT center in the county where they provide these services for a cheaper price, and then they subsidize the price, and then they can also gather revenue. It's not a must that the county governments will let the private sector only. The county government and the Ministry of ICT can have a cyber cave with a photocopy machine, with a photo session, for passport and everything, under one roof where you go in and get out, you pay like 300 or 400 shillings. That will be a revenue for the county. And then you pay through M-Pesa pay bill. You don't even need to collect cash. So that way, it is going to create more opportunities. But now we need to develop, if the policies are there, we need to budget for them and then we run with it.
Yeah.
We need to educate the people also so that there is civic education on the same, through the chiefs, through the county commissioners and all that. It is a dream that all Kenyans must actualize it. Yeah.
When you talk about actualization, as we speak, 2 million bags of fertilizer is already at the port of Mombasa, and we expect 4 million more to be imported.
Yeah.
This is something that raised some kind of an eyebrow some weeks back with the farmers in the South Rift talking about the fertilizer, they subsidized, of course, but then the big issue was the sale of maize in the silos. When you have got 2 million bags, when you have got 4 million still on the high waters, the government is planning to actualize the farming, the agriculture the president was talking about. But then now, where does this leave the local farmer without much of a burden?
My take will be, Victor, is that as long as there are farmers in this country who have maize, we buy from them first. Okay?
Yes.
First, we exhaust what we have in the country. Once we do that, then we can bring the surplus. Because once the people in Nyandarua or Kirinyaga or Western Kenya or Rift Valley have exhausted their stock by selling to the government, I'm sure the government has mechanism to track this. Then from there we can bring in maize. But it will be contradictory for the government to bring maize when we have maize. It's either someone is playing with our mind and doing business with us by telling us one thing on television and doing something else by action. So let's first buy what we have from the maize farmers in Rift Valley. You have seen guys in Washingisu in North Rift were asking, why are you bringing maize? And people were showing it on Facebook. These days people, you only need a phone.
Yeah.
Because within the journalism sector, we have the citizen journalists. You have a phone, you show them, this is the maize I have, 100 bucks. The government is not buying. Why is the government bringing maize from another place when I already have 100 bags, 200 bags?
Yeah.
So let's first, through our chiefs and county commissioners and our village, because of devolution, we have village elders, village administrators, ward administrators, sub-county administrators, and then we have the office of the county commissioner and deputy and all that. So through that, we can actualize that the maize can be brought to the sub-counties and then we buy from them, then like that. But now, how do you want to bring maize and people to farm then? If you bring extra maize, what is the essence of farming? So bring the surplus after we've exhausted the stock we have.
Whatever is in the store right now.
Stock, then let farmers buy the fertilizer and go start farming. So let's now plan in a way that the president talked about building dams for irrigation. That is a good thing. But there are people with rivers who just need the equipment. They can do irrigation 3-4 seasons. So all this requires people developing policy, people planning in the Ministry of Agriculture, making sure that all these things, because different regions have different needs. The areas that have, Wajir has no river, but Garissa and Mandera have rivers. So the need for Wajir is big dams. But the need for Mandera will be providing engines for irrigations, ploughing machines, fertilizers, and all that. So let's work with the county government to actualize that, but there is no need of bringing surplus when you already have a stock. It's contradictory of the government to reduce living cost.
Okay. In just a few days ahead of us, the new administration will be clocking 90 days in office. Perhaps what are some of the hits and misses that you've so far witnessed in this administration?
the president has not settled. And that makes the cabinet secretaries do their work very difficult. Because if the president is all over, running around, talking to us everywhere, then we ask, when are the cabinet secretaries going to do their work? When are we going to listen to them? They are the guys. Delegation of duty is one of the best leadership quality a man can do. You and I trained in journalism, and we say there is a journalistic dictum. Don't show, don't tell.
Yeah.
You show, you don't tell. President William Ruto should know that from his body language, from his rhetoric, from his policies, he wants to be measured in the same scale with Kibaki. But Kibaki was a silent man. He showed us what he was doing. So if you want to compete, you want to be the second. He will not beat, it will be a miracle for him to beat Kibaki of what he did in 10 years. For him to do that, he needs to be very silent. Go back to State House, do a few things here and there, yes, but allow the cabinet secretaries, the permanent secretaries, the directors in those ministries who are the technocrats, guys who have been there from 1964, 65, who have trained, either they are on contract or consultants in different departments, do the job. That way, the president will have results. Until then, if he is the one launching every project, if he is the one doing that, then his priority during the elections was the cost of living. We are okay that he has subsidized, he removed the subsidies for fuel, and right now people are still struggling with it. It's a bit expensive, but food has gone up by 15+% in terms of cost. Fuel is up. So the first priority should be first, how do Kenyans afford what to eat? Poverty is not defined as someone who does not have what to eat. Poverty is more than that.
Yeah.
If someone has only the money to buy for food for his kids, when will they buy newspapers so that they have access to information? That's their right. When are they going to buy a TV and watch shows so that they get educated? When are they going to have health insurance? It's not about food. Poverty is more than food. Food is just one aspect of it.
Yeah.
So there are other elements that we need, which are rights, right to information. So if my son has not eaten, then how do I be? Newspaper is 60 bob. It's not every Kenyan who can buy a newspaper because there are other priorities. So they cannot buy newspapers, they can't buy health insurance, they can't even read. So I think the president did not fulfill his promises on 50% of cabinet women. That is a miss. Food is still very high. He talked of the first priority. It's becoming another. He avoided the issue of GMO.
Yeah.
He completely avoided for a very long time now. In his 90 days, he talked of food and other food items. So he knows that Kenyans right now will not take things that just come like that.
Yeah.
They are not consulted. So 100 days, 90 days coming, we will give him the benefit of doubt. He has put up his infrastructure of governance in terms of cabinet secretaries. The PS are up and rolling in their offices now. Christmas is coming. Now, we will start measuring him after we come back from Christmas.
Okay. You talked of the president should now settle down and delegate. Expand on that.
Well, if you look at the president's way of doing things, when you have 23 or 22 cabinet secretaries and 51 permanent secretaries, you want these people also to lead. You receive now. He has cabinet in place. He has advisors in place. Relax. Stay in State House. Receive information. I mean, every morning before even you and I wake up, he receives national intelligence brief. You see? So he's a guy who is, up and take. He's very disciplined. He said he doesn't drink. He doesn't look like he does drugs. He's physically fit. He's still young, 50-something. Let him give the cabinet secretaries and the permanent secretaries time to work. Because you cannot appoint a cabinet secretary today and then within a month you want them to come to State House for 3 times for a meeting. When are they going to plan? When are they going to meet staff across the country? They have representatives everywhere. I mean, the auditor office has officers in the 47 counties. So they have officers in the 47 counties. So he can also use technology to meet them. He can create a Zoom meeting for 5 of them this week, 5 maybe end month, but at least give them a month to settle, delegate most of these duties, but keep them on tabs. I will not allow Ruto to let the cabinet ministers like that. No, keep tab on them, but give them some space to breathe so that they can do, and then you can receive. That way, you can reflect every 3-4 months.
Okay.
But weekly briefs, monthly briefs, the secretariats are there. I mean, people like David D are part of the senior advisors there. I mean, you know, so they can deal with information, analyze the data, and then give him the actual scenario of what's happening in the country. Yeah.
Abdullahi, let's talk about something that most parliamentarians actually, the president also talked about sometimes last week, and it's still even in the papers here, that the president is proposing to create the office of the official opposition. Well, many people would say that that office does not squarely lie for Raila Odinga. According to the proposal, a coalition of parties or a coalition party can pick any person of their choice to fill that position of official opposition. But then that this would mean that we'll have to go back to the new constitution, the 2010 constitution. After the 2010 constitution, that particular bill, that particular position was completely abolished. And as we speak, it's a debate in motion. And of course, Parliament has, you know, their fingers on that bill. Sometimes next year, it will be on the floor of the House for a debate. Let me get your voice on that.
Well, before I do anything, I will refer back to the BBI judgment, both from the High Court and the Court of Appeal, that went even up to the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Can the president initiate a constitutional amendment process? The president is the property of this country, is a state officer. Once that happens, we were told by the courts he is not an ordinary person. We were told the route to that is through either the popular initiative or through Parliament. Now, what does that judgment say? The basic structure of the Constitution can be altered through the primary constituent power, which must include 4 sequential processes, namely civic education, public participation, collation of views, constituent assembly debate, and ultimately a referendum. Now, first of all, when you want to create an office of the opposition, that's a big office. And I guess it will have 2 deputies at least, looking at Kenyan politics. That belongs, the person of that office will not be paid from the salary of either the members of Parliament or President William Ruto. It will be paid from the taxpayers' coffer. So, Article 1 says the supreme power belongs to the people.
Right.
So if the people did not employ the opposition of the leader, who is the president to employ him? Or even create entertain the idea? So Raila himself has disputed that yesterday on Citizen. It was reported in Citizen Online, or even the newspapers, that he said this is just bringing BBI through the back door.
Yeah.
So I think what President Ruto has realized is that the shoe was on the other side when he was the deputy president. Now the shoe is on him. He has realized, how do you govern a country where Uhuru and Ruto are outside government? President Uhuru is now dealing with DRC. You've seen he's very comfortable.
Yeah.
Raila is very tough to handle. He's a very strong character. Too big for Ruto. If he goes to the streets, it will be very difficult to govern. So he has to come with a way of entertaining him, that this is coming, it's either for you or not. Do you think these people don't meet? They do. Remember, Ruto and Raila were together before, and NAC, or, you know, those years. So Uhuru, President Ruto is playing the politics of what you call the checkmate in the chase. When you play chess, is the checkmate.
Yeah.
The king. So every time his politics is coming up, is there something we are not being told about the central Kenya, Mount Kenya? Didi Nyoro has just kept quiet. Ichungwa is taking a low profile. The deputy president, Gachagua, is allowing the president to do things. Moses Kuria has hibernated. Is there things we don't know? Yes, there are, because most of the things that we don't know are done between 12 p.m. a.m. up to 5 a.m. when you and I are sleeping. That is how these people operate. If they want to have a meeting, do you think Ruto and Raila did not meet? They did. If they did, you and I don't know. They can meet in a hotel under very strict, secrecy meeting, and they discuss these things. So the issue of office of the opposition, as it stands, it cannot come from the president. It cannot. Because right now you look at judiciary. Ruto is enticing the judiciary to allow him to govern. Look at the 3 billion they're given. That is the money they're going to play around with. When the CJ, Mother Kome, was picked, maybe Uhuru thought he could use her. But she couldn't, because one, she was coming from the human rights sector. She was a social activist. But if you look at her qualification, she was not the most qualified. I came up through documents that she had a pass in the university. There are people who had second class upper. There are people who had second class lower. There, like that. So, but in the same judiciary, we have tough judges who have cut a niche for themselves. Isaac Leona is one of the toughest judges I've ever seen. We have Philomena Milu. So all these mechanisms, how is it going to... Kenya is like any other part of the country where the elites, judicial elites, economical elites, political elites are still playing around with us and taking a circle, looking at their interests. So this position, it's going to be interesting to know how Parliament is going to circumnavigate and then go around the judgment of BBI, because we already have a presidents from the High Court, Court of Appeal, up to the Supreme Court.
Let me read the tweet which Honorable Raila Odinga sent out yesterday. In his tweet, Raila Odinga said that Mr. Ruto's memorandum presents a proposal without recognizing the fact that BBI reports, which are official government documents, contain all those proposals coupled with the rationale on why they had to be deemed necessary by the people of Kenya. Instead, Mr. Ruto has appropriated the views of these people and speaks on the proposal of his own. Okay, it further says, but further than that, making these proposals, he fails foul of the same demand he made and used to lead the challenge against BBI.
Yes.
So, Mr. Odinga continues to say that during BBI, Mr. Ruto demanded, one, that a president cannot initiate a constitutional amendment. Two, that amendments must start with the people. 3, that the process of the amendment be people-driven. And 4, that amendments must chiefly center on the interest of the common man. Based on what you've said and based on the ruling of the Supreme Court, that the president cannot initiate a popular initiative like the BBI. At this particular point, can you say that this process is dead before it started?
You and I were here last year, November, when we talked about some of these issues. Oka Kenya, Oka this, Oka that. Some of these things are there to test the waters. When you throw the hook into the river, you don't know what's going to come out of it. The president knows some of these things. I think he needs to concentrate on the living standards, the cost of living. That is the priority right now. He told us himself that our constitution is 80% progressive and very good. When something is 80% good, that's an A. Olo, that is an A.
Yeah.
If you get an A, 80 marks, you don't need to worry about the 20%. Right now, the president has a lot on his tray in State House. There is the issue of judiciary building high courts. There is the judiciary of task force for the police conditions. There is the report from the task force from education, CBC is an issue. There is the issue of gender. You see, all these things require money. So the more you bring more, you're just burdening the taxpayer. Kenya is the second highest taxed country in Africa after South Africa. And 80% of the informal sector depend on agriculture and juakali and other things. So, as much as I understand, at the back of his mind, Ruto is worried about 2027. But he needs to worry about the 5 years he has been given the mandate to serve. So, reviewing the constitution, even the current document, it was from 2002 to 2010, 1992 to 2010 is how many years? So it's going to take a while. They say the Constitution is a living document where things will be done progressively as the need and circumstances will change for us. As we speak today, if I was in the circle of the president, I will tell him, with due respect, Mr. President, reviewing the Constitution is not a priority right now. Kenyans are dying of hunger. He has confessed 6-point-something millions don't have food. 20 plus counties don't have 3 meals. There is a drought right now. There is the issue of food production. So I think the president should sit back and first govern us. Don't bring us proposals barely 90 days before you are in office. At least Uhuru and Raila brought it 2018. You see, 8 years after they were in power. You can't be in office for 90 days and all you think about is Ruto's mechanics of politics is to operate in a very cunning, strategic way that people do not sense what he's doing, but entice them. Parliament is giving them CDF. You see, he's enticing judiciary and CDF. CDF with parliamentarians, oversight for the Senate. These guys will be cool. So we need Parliament, even though the Speaker is from UDA, he should tell the President, Your Honor, do you think, Mr. President, it's a priority right now for Kenyans? Look at what's happening in the streets. I mean, what about the people who are living in the streets? What about people who don't have jobs? What about the kids who are going to school without food? I mean, you should provide maybe milk for children in pastoral areas. So priorities for him is kind of mixed. He needs to take the cost of living very serious. Priority number 1, priority number 2.
All right. It's 8 on the dot. Let's take a break. And we come back. We're still going to talk about that issue. What if Raila Odinga picks that position of the official opposition? What if he doesn't? These are some of the questions that I want us to answer when we come back after this break. It's our time.
Coming on the left foot with that height. Oh, it's gone into the net. It has. Youssef El-Nesri using his height to advantage here. A ball that looked like a loose ball in that box. It started in the midfield, but now he's involved in it. And then a left foot cross from the left side. And then there is one defender trying to go for it as well. That height of Youssef El-Nesri has the littlest of nicest of touches, glancing downwards, that beats the goalkeeper and beats the defender. It goes into the net, Jacob.
Well, he outjumped David Costa in that Portuguese goal, and that's a beautiful goal for sure. Ronaldo cannot believe it on the bench there.
Sauti ya Kenya 92.9. Hii ni KBC Radio Taifa.
Kila kitu maishani kina sauti yaleta furaha.
Radio.
Sauti ya elimisha, yahimiza, yatuleta pamoja. Sauti ya Kenya.
Radio Taifa.
Sauti ya Kenya.
Perfect. Welcome back. Abdullahi Ahmed, who is a journalist, a governance expert, and a political analyst, still here with me in studio. We are talking the issue of the sweet deal, as Raila would call it, that aspect of having that office of the official opposition. Who will fill that position, if at all it will be created? And going the parliamentary route, is it the right route to go, having in mind that we have got a different system of governance to what we have right now? So if it goes to Parliament, Abdullahi, let me just get it. What if Raila accepts the position? What next?
But how does he accept a position that the president has been told you can't create it and he's creating it? He's not even in position to accept. Our President Kenyatta tried to bring a BBI so that opposition leader can have a seat in the dining, or when he has a knife for the cassava, or so that the constitution, the courts were very clear on Article 255, 256, 257, how it's going to be done, whether it's a parliament. But is it even need? Why does a president who has just been given a mandate to serve Kenyans for the next 5 years talk about constitutional amendment before even 90 days in his office? I mean, why? I mean, you're talking of cost of living, universal healthcare, I mean, education, advancement in most areas, ECD classes. So President Ruto is just playing with the minds of Kenyans. He's testing the waters. Kenyans will not accept it. We do not need a constitutional amendment right now. We need unga to come down from 200 to 80 shillings. We need Kenya Creameries, KCC, to be producing milk so that we buy milk at 50 bob. We need villages having equipment for grinding maize in their own capacity, so that the Ministry of Agriculture is working with locals so that food production, either for subsistence or commercial, is produced. Those are the priorities. We had an election. Ruto was declared the winner. Former Prime Minister was defeated. It should remain so. The Right Honorable Prime Minister has his rights to oversight, to participate in the governance as he did in 1982 or 87 or 90. Nothing will change that.
Okay.
But the idea of creating a position for someone because you think he's going to give you headache in governing, is something we should be very concerned about. Yes.
Then it means that we'll have to revisit the constitution. If at all that position has to be created, we are in a different system of governance, parliamentary. You would imagine the process that it would go. Do you really think the president would really allow Kenyans to go the referendum route?
Why will he want people to do referendum when the cost of living is very high? People will rebel against him. And one thing, President Ruto is no longer a hustler. He's a dynasty now. He's a dynasty. His kids will be called dynasties because they are the sons of the 5th president. He was accusing Raila of being a dynasty because his father was Odinga, is it? What are we going to do about his children? They are also going to be called dynasties. He's a product of a dynasty, if you look at critically, because when he was the youth chairman for KANU, he was dining and wining with Moi. Okay? The opportunities, he even used to go and pick money from Moi. So he's a product of a dynasty. Now that he became the president, Ruto is among the richest people in this country. So he's no longer a hustler. He's no longer the chicken seller. His circumstances have changed. His fortunes have changed. His kids have grown up in a better life than he did. So technically, he becomes a dynasty himself. So the way you treat Kenyans on forward is the regalia of clothes and just bringing things and dumping to Kenyans. Kenyans will ask you, we gave you a job, the highest paying. We took you to State House. What have you done for us? Forget about giving job to Raila. Raila was your biggest competitor. He lost the election, yes. We gave it to you. Why do you want to amend the constitution before even you fed us? We can't feed our kids. We can't take them to school. Access in health is a problem. Why is it a priority for you? It's because he knows as long as Raila is outside, if he gave headache to Ruto, whose father was a president, who grew up in the State House, Ruto is wondering what kind of a stress you're going to have with this guy. Fix him somewhere. Uhuru is already fixed. Fix Raila somewhere. It will be smooth for you to govern. But he forgets that the 7 million Kenyans who voted for him did not belong to Ruto or Uhuru or Raila. They were Kenyans who wanted change.
Yeah.
They were Kenyans who were yearning to have a better life. I told you, Human Development Index, I think we are number 19 or 16 in Africa. You see, so it is not a priority. I am sure they will try it in Parliament, both at the Parliament, the National Parliament and the Senate. Both speakers have no otherwise but to comply with the President. But Kenyans must not allow politicians to be driving the narrative.
When it goes to Parliament, and because they have numbers, most likely it will sail through.
It will end up in court.
It will end up, right?
Yeah, it will end up in court. Why we have, most people say that Kenya is a litigant country. Yes. If I'm not satisfied with the issue, do you want me to take a bomb or a gun? No, I go to court and express why this is not right, because that's the most civil way of handling these issues. So I think members of Parliament are there to represent, to legislate, and to oversight. This idea of only running around with the CDF should come to an end. You are given a position of a high prestige. Please serve Kenyans and not your political class or leaders.
Okay, all right. When you talk of that, Raila Odinga said now that you should now reintroduce BBI, because basically when that is happening, then it means that you'll have to bring the copy of BBI from the shelves, put into the table and say, this is exactly what I was talking about. But is the president ready again to introduce BBI, something that he vehemently opposed?
We'll play his videos, and that contradicts whatever he stood for. If he was just a person who was shrewd using deception to get to power, these things have been researched on in the world. It's not the first person. He will. So Kenyans have to rebel. We have to tell President Ruto, listen, Mr. President, you wanted a job. We gave you the job. Now, this is our money. It's the taxpayers' money. We want our children to access schools. Do the job we gave you to do. There is nowhere we told you give Raila a position. There is nowhere we told you our first priority is to amend the constitution. No, that's not what we said. What we told you is, look, 59 years after independence, we celebrated yesterday, we are still talking about the issues we spoke about in 1963. Inequality, reduction of poverty, access to education, opening up infrastructure. I mean, that's the concern of the president. So I think he will lose it. Kenyans will not accept it. And the maturity of our democracy now is that Kenyans can reject you through the ballot. So giving Raila a job, there are winners and people are defeated in election. I contested in 2077 in Mandera North. I didn't get as much as my competitor who got job because the factors that played were around money. It's not about competence or what you know, no, it was about who you are affiliated with and how much money you have. That did not change much, but I'm sure with the progress of our constitutional dispensation developing, we are going to a place where people who had no money this time were elected, not in Northeastern, but other parts, because in Northeastern elders are still anointing people.
Interesting days ahead after they come from recess.
It is.
All right. Let's talk about this. This is something I know this is quite close to the hearts of many guardians, parents across the country, even students themselves. The president said that the junior secondary school will be domiciled in primary. This sounded like some sweet music in the ears of many.
But do we have the infrastructure? Because you're talking about grade 8 and 9 who are Form 1 and Form 2s within.
Yes.
Some schools even don't have classes for ECD. So it's incumbent upon the president with his CS for education to provide the infrastructure for those classes. They need teachers, extra teachers. I'm happy they said they are going to employ 30,000.
Yeah, by next year.
By next year.
Yes.
So if they're going to do in bits, at least by the end of the year, every county will have 338, 307 teachers, which is relatively still very small to the ratio of a teacher to a student, but it is better than nothing. So do we have the infrastructure for those in place? Those two classes, Form 1 and Form 2, domiciled in primary schools, okay. Do we have the teachers for them? Do we have the classes for them? Do we have the books for them? And if we do all that, then how is that going to reach them in their schools by opening? So the president might not have even a lot of Christmas, especially the education sector and himself. They must lock themselves in a room and make sure that by early January, contractors can be given to construct 2 classes, at least in every school, so that the kids can come because most of these schools are already overcrowded, some of them.
Yeah.
So the infrastructure needs to be put in place so that at least this can be actualized. I agree that people of the same age group should stay together, because when you take someone who is class 13, 12 to secondary where they are 15, 16, it becomes a problem to you know, insulate and you know, adapt. But when people are still within 12, 13, 14 in the same, teachers can still provide discipline and everything, but kids can still be comfortable around them. So I think it is a good thing. But how that is going to be actualized is the biggest headache for the president.
But the biggest fear was the rate of transition, how it was going to happen. Taking a student who is a grade 6 kid going to junior
12
secondary,
to 11.
exactly, transitioning to junior secondary school, the culture shock. Perhaps this one sounded some sort of good news to the parents.
I think it was more reasonable. This one was more reasonable than the previous proposal that they should go to secondary school. Let's have class 6 students and form 1, form 2 as in junior high, junior secondary 7 and 8 within. That's a very good reasoning.
Yes.
And I'm sure it came from parents. That's why even when the task force are appointed, they collected views. I'm sure I saw them in Mandera, collected views, Mandera Secondary School. So it was the most reasonable and logic to have kids of the same age bracket to stay together, so that by the time they are 14, 15, they can transition to secondary school, like before. At least form 1, form 2, 13, 14, when you go to secondary, you're 15, 16, relatively very good.
Let me ask you a question. How is Mandera in terms of governance right now?
Mandera is good. We have done tremendous improvement in terms of infrastructure, but reducing you know, poverty in terms of investing in the software, especially in agriculture. They did it in the last 2 budgets of 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015. But there has been a lot of investment that much into agriculture. It's relatively peaceful. Way better than 2013. We have to be honest. It takes 30 years for devolution to pick up in other countries. Ours is still developing. By the time the new county government was coming into place in 2013, we had no systems in place, so we had to establish 10 departments or 10 ministries where it is human resource and policies and everything. Right now, we might not have the best assembly in terms of membership, or even the county government.
Is the executive completely formed right now?
Yes, right now the chief officers is in court. There is a court order against appointment and contracting until 27th of January. But by and large, the CECs are in place. They're doing the best thing. We'll wait and see. But the previous government, there were issues of resource mismanagement. Our Mandera County government file is one of the 31 by EACC to the DPP, you know, referring prosecution against certain entities who have been embezzled almost at 5 million. So people are going to be charged. But by and large, are we better than 2012? Yes. Did we get the software mechanics of governance for the people of Mandera? Relatively below 40%.
Okay. Please tell the governor we need him on the show.
Governor Mandera is called Mohammed Adan Ghalif. He's a friend of mine. I am sure if he's invited, he will come.
Tell him we need him over to speak to Kenyans.
KBC would like to invite you, Mr. Mohammed Adan Ghalif. Makolo really was asking to talk to you.
Governor, you got the memo. You got the memo on national television. All right. We're heading to the Christmas, and of course, I know many Kenyans are now contemplating to have that particular. This is going to be a different one because it's coming just after coronavirus. For 2 or 2.5 years, Kenyans didn't travel home and just enjoy. But I think this time around is going to be what's good in Mandera to travel.
There is camel milk. There is camel meat. There's goats. I'm sure it is like any other Kenyan setup. You will get local Kenyans who are doing business there. I'm sure the guy with the best school is from Nyanza in Mandera. He has a cyber cafe. He was there from 2000. So a lot of good things. If you go there, you can buy good shirts from Somalia.
Good.
Yeah, bring sugar and milk for your family.
Next time, Karisam.
Yes,
Please,
Karisam.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
I
having
think
me.
that's the right time for us. Even they say that even if you're the best dancer, know the best time to quit the stage. It's time for us to quit the stage. Okay, thank you so much. We've been speaking to Abdullahi Ahmed Alas, who is also a governance expert and a political analyst. He's also a journalist by training, joining me on set. Honorable Gabriel Kagombe, no, that's not the way to do it. You promised to come to the show. You are a no-show, not even a notification. I think you can do better. Thank you so much. You, as a viewer, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Victor. We are taking a break, but GMK continues after this. Stay tuned. Good morning.
Female genital mutilation is one practice, just in various parts of this country, different counties, with prevalence being in places such as Kisii, Embu, Meru, Taita Taveta, and even Kuria.
Twataka kuheshimu mila zetu, lakini ndio tuweze kuheshimu mila zetu, lazima pia tukae na tuseme zile mila ambazo zaumiza watoto wetu tuachane nazo, lakini zile mila ambazo ni za manufaa kwa watoto wetu tuendelee nazo.
The government has also made various strides with the notion of wanting to stop this practice by 2022.
When you instructed us with the Shebesh that the target of 2022 to have 0 cases of FGM is your plan, and we are trying to execute it, but Your Excellency, this cannot be done alone. First, let me thank the elders, because when they signed the declaration in the State House about 2 years ago, that was one of the new things that we, as an intervention, because fighting FGM requires several interventions. One of the intervention is where we brought in elders because they are the decision makers.
In this documentary, we learn about
nilisema nataka kukeketwa.
Alishika hiyo maneno kutoka kwa nyanya yake, akaja naye kutuambia ati yeye nataka.
Tulienda tukakeketa msichana mmoja, akamblindi.
We sensitized them about the dangers of FGM.
And now, I'm in Tharaka-Nithi County to find out if the government interventions are bearing fruits.
Kerunya kaire ntige tonga ananka gerero ngabanakaya akandinga mukono ntige tonga ewa kwa mware enwa mugambo nchoweya.
I got an appointment with Fides Kithinji, a reformed ex-cutter who practiced FGM for decades. She underwent the cut.
Wakati nilitaidiwa nikiwa mkubwa, sababu si hakuna kampuni. Unajua hii ni kampuni yako sasa. Sasa unaona wewe ukiacha huyu akitairiwa na huyu atairiwe na huyu mwingine, wewe uwezi waachwa peke yake. Sasa unakosa kampuni. Unajua kampuni. Sasa hiyo ndio inaniwezesha nitairiwe, sababu hakuna mtu tunakaa na yeye. Nitakuwa peke yangu.
According to Fides, it was more of a ceremony than an event.
Sasa wakati huu ni wakati wa ule mtani, ile mwenye kutairi anavaa hivi. Hata ukimwona na njia unajua yeye ni mwenye kutairi. Hata mwenye kutairiwa akiniona anajua ndio ule mtani. Anaitwa mtani. Sasa zamani mwenye kutairi alikuwa anaenda akiwa anaimbiwa. Anaimba. Sasa akienda pale ataingia pole na msisana naye hapa ndio mwenye kutairiwa atatokea na hii mlango amalisiwe mambo yake, na mimi nitakuwa pale nje. Sasa hii inaitwa kovia mtani, na hii ni nkio ya mtani. Hii mti inaitwa lamara, yani ile pimbo ya mtani. Ukienda kusukua mtani, kama mtu anikujia hapa, kama unatumano kama vile vijana Kijana kama ule anakuja ananiambia tunataka uende ukatairie kwetu. Sasa leta ile pesa unakuja naye ili niweze kutoka. Kiniashie 1,000. Sasa nitampea hii. Ona, ataenda naye akijua mtani akienda atapelekea yule mwenye kutairiwa mwambie ukiona hii ujua hakuna utabadilika, hata ukikataa tunakushika kwa nguvu.
Poverty made Fides to become a cutter.
Sasa nikaona nione kama nikitairi nitasapata pesa. Sasa nikaanja hapo umuhimu nikafuatilia wale walikuwa na barua. Wajua huku kutairi zamani ilikuwa ukienda kutairi na unaenda unapea chibu pesa. Unakupatia barua unaenda kutairi nayo. Sasa ukiwa unapata ile barua utaenda hivyo, utakuwa ukienda bila mke. Asubuhi saa 12 umetairi. Umemaliza na unapewa kitu.
For one to qualify as a cutter, one had to cut at least 10 young ladies.
Wajua ulikuwa unatairi kisirisiri, hakuna mtu anajua kama unatairi. Unaenda unatairi, unakujua unatairi, unarudi. Sasa ukirundi vile wajua ni kama vile unapewa mtihani unapita. Sasa ukikuwa na watu 10 wako, sasa hiyo ndio kama unafunuliwa. Unapatiana ile sakura, wanakura alafu wanakuambia sasa wewe endelea kabisa. Ni kama vile unafanya mtihani wa form 4. Kama ukapita uende university.
Later on the day, I received a call from Sarah Karimi from Kirimangare village, Kanjuki sublocation. She is one of the few women who voluntarily went for the cut.
Nilisema nataka kukeketwa. Ukeketaji ulikuwa mwingi na ilikuwa ni passion. So kama hujakeketwa hauna kampani.
Mtu anakaa for how long ndio arudi kwa sawa kabisa, ile mpaka anaweza toka aende nje atembee aendelee na shughuli zake kwa kawaida?
Utakaa mwezi moja.
Na hiyo mwezi uketi kwa nyumba ni mambo gani ambayo unafanyiwa? Kama ile kuku appreciate umetoka from one stage to another stage.
Kiutamaduni kuna mambo mingi walikuwa wanafanya. Utaletwa watu hata kwa kuchape. Uko na kidonda na utachapwa. Utaambua kama ni mambo ya kuheshimu mama mwenye amekuwa supporter wako. Utaambua mambo ya kama unapita njiani ukutane na wazazi wako, unapaa wewe unaingia kwa kichaka, wanapita. Upusi mwingi.
Peer pressure also pushed her to go for the cut.
Wakati niko darasani nilikuwa na stress, sababu naona wenzangu wameenda kuolewa. Kama rafiki yangu nakumbuka kuna mmoja aliolewa tu vile tu sasa tulirudi mashuleni. Yeye akakuwa tayari alikuwa na boyfriend, lakini sasa vile amepita hiyo section sasa amekuwa sawa. So akakuwa ameolewa, kuna mtoto. Bado mimi hata sijamaliza class 8. Bado naendelea na masomo. So nilikuwa naona ni stress kubwa.
Simon Jaging Gathu is a community leader in Kirimangare village.
Wanajaribu kuendelea ama kuendesha ile utamaduni wao. Hiyo kazi mimi sitaifanya. Maana niliona haina kitu ama haina faida yoyote kwangu. Na kama mtu akija kwangu kuniambia ati nataka barua, uende unishukulie barua kwa chief ama kwa assistant chief ili nipate nafasi ya kukeketa msichana wangu. Hiyo kitu mimi nakataa. Na tena hiyo kama kiendelea na hiyo kazi na nikipata huyo msichana amekeketwa, mimi napiga ripoti kwa authority, halafu majukumu nashukuliwa na serikali. Kusema kweli mimi sioni kama kuna kitu ambayo kiko muhimu sana kwa kukeketa msichana, mbali ni hasara tupu.
A few meters away, I met Grace Josephat, a reformed ex-cutter who practiced FGM for over 10 years.
kuanzia 1979 tukaenda mpaka hata mimi akanifundisha kukeketa. Akitengenezewa pombe akikunywa akalewa, ananiambia sasa nilikufundisha, saa hii wewe utafanya hii kazi. Tulienda tukakeketa msichana mmoja akamblindi kwa damu kwa wingi. Nikaangalia nikaona na hii ni maneno ya kufungwa. Nikafikiria, nikaanza kutetemeka. Nikaona hii maneno hii serikali ikijua tutapungwa. Mimi nikaolewa na pasta. Nikiolewa na pasta akaniambia sasa hii maneno sitakubaliana na hii maneno. Hata nikiwa mimi na keketa nilikuwa naona ni maneno sio mzuri.
Government interventions to stop FGM has attracted support from non-governmental organizations. We met Faith, Regional Director, Plan International based in Tharaka-Nithi County.
A lot of progress has been achieved towards eradication of the practice, with a lot of emphasis on working with locals, mainly the role models, women and men that are in support of ending the practice, women that have progressed well in their career and have not gone through FGM, and others that have gone through FGM are career women but are against the practice and have been able to stop the practice in their own families. So those are the people that we've been working with. There are a lot of awareness campaigns that have been held at the community level. A lot of government structures have also been supported, especially strengthening the court users committees, working with the area advisory councils, training the police officers, mainly to ensure that they understand the need for issues of child protection, because FGM falls under violation of children's rights as well as a form of gender-based violence. So as much as there is that much that the organization has done in reducing the practice from 58% in 2014 to 48% as at last year, a lot more needs to be done now that comparing the prevalence in Tharaka-Nithi County and the national prevalence of 21%, we are way above the national average with around 27%. A lot more needs to be done in eradicating the practice, which is quite deep-rooted. And as much as the government is committed to ending the practice in 2022, there is quite some good trial in terms of the government agencies supporting the presidential directive, but there is a lot more that needs to be done by everyone to ensure that the practice is eradicated in 2022.
Some children were actually rescued by Plan International, them that were to undergo the cut, and then they picked them. Those are the girls that they hold seminars for. We sensitize them about the dangers of FGM as a woman, as a girl, and even to the education sector. It's dangerous to them. We've held so many seminars and we've taught well about it, and for sure a large percentage is now in schools as a result of those seminars.
If you compare FGM prevalence, especially across the county, areas where the literacy levels are very high, people have gone to school, people are in church, people are not poor, the FGM levels are very low. But where the poverty levels are high, there are high levels of illiteracy, then FGM is high. So if we fight poverty, then it will definitely address issues of FGM, because parents will have, they will be financially stable. They can be able to take their children through schools. There is that level of exposure that comes up with the improved level standards of living. There is that interaction with the outside world that brings in the natural transformation from embracing the cultural practices that are retrogressive to encouraging education, to encouraging support of education, and hence eradication of FGM in an area.
My visit to Tharaka-Nithi County left me with hope. A hope that come 2022, FGM prevalence will be zero. A hope that girls will be given equal opportunity in the society. I will visit Tharaka again.
Kitwek FM Kegosin.
Our day begins at the mission headquarters in Mogadishu, Somalia.
When you are out there, for us, ours is to remain coordinating.
A quick brief before we head out for what ATMIS calls a visibility patrol. It's then time to board this P7 armored vehicle, ready and draped in bulletproof vests and helmets. We board. The streets of Mogadishu are relatively calm. These patrols are done on a regular basis to instill confidence in the public that the ATMIS forces are around and have their safety at heart, but at the same time send a warning signal to the Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab still remains a threat to the stability and sovereignty of Somalia, and it's the job of these men and women in uniform to keep that threat at bay. Recent trends by the terror group have been identified as follows: extensive use of improvised explosive devices, persistent use of person-struck vehicle-borne attacks, especially in Mogadishu and major towns, target assassinations, use of propaganda on various social media outlets, and voluntary or forced recruitments. There has, however, been a growing unrest and disapproval of the militia group among members of the public, and this is a situation that, in cooperation with the federal government of Somalia and the civilian component, ATMIS is prepared to take full advantage of.
You saw, for example, last operation, there are over 300 Al-Shabaab put out of action. It means the population is not now welcome Al-Shabaab, which is a positive.
So the mentorship is part of preparing the Somalis to take over their security responsibility.
The support of the Somali Joint Forces Unit has been a game changer, and the team here is positive that going forward the mission will realize much more success.
Issues to do with piracy has not been reported.
The forces have realized a number of achievements. Since formation, they have successfully secured delay elections that had triggered political tension, combat mentoring and training of Somali security forces, and increased IED findings thanks to the United Nations Mine Action Services training and capacity building and the successful joint ops in the regions of Lower Shabelle, Ali Fudere and Hiran. All the forces, however, face few challenges that, if addressed, the mandate will be a huge success.
So to be able to reach the mobile forces in different areas, you need logistics that are flexible. And that is the aspiration of the new concept. Funding has been a problem to some extent. Reimbursement is not done at the right time because there are no funds at the African Union.
As we head back to the headquarters, it's clear that the public trust from the residents of Mogadishu has been received well by the forces, and the general feeling is that the civilian component continues to volunteer vital security information. The question on whether the enemy will be defeated has shifted from if to when. Our day begins at the mission headquarters in Mogadishu, Somalia. Kismayu, Somalia. We learned that Sector 6 headquarters, a military base shared and manned by the Kenya and Ethiopian troops. Here we'll link up with Sector 2 Deputy Sector Commander Joel Maya, who shares that apart from the military functions performed by the ATMIS forces here, Kenya Defence Forces has been able to do training and equip the local population here with skills that have enabled them to gain the trust of the locals.
Our activities are also geared to employing the soft power to ensure that we support that local population by giving limited civil military assistance in terms of drugs, in terms of food. Same to women who require assistance during birth. We've been able also to assist through our medic. They've done a very good job.
The public confidence in the KDF soldiers here has been a major boost to the joint operations by the forces in getting to the enemies and weakening them in their strongholds. Any commander sending his team knows the risk involved, and sometimes our men and women in uniform go out and pay the ultimate price in the line of duty, which always leaves a void. Mayo, however, says the training his officers have received ensures that they stay on the ready to tackle the enemy.
We have counselors, we have those guys who are trained to ensure that the psychological support is there, the counseling is there. So it is part of our job, this job you must be expect some risks. So we have that kind of support, and I think we have been able to manage it well.
His sentiments echoed by 2nd Mechanized Infantry Battalion Commanding Officer Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Kasaine, who says the soldiers here are committed to the transition plan and the team is always alert in the event of a security incident.
When the local population is tired of Al-Shabaab, then that is a very good pointer towards better things to come. And I believe perhaps even before 2024, we may see a very different we may see a lot of reduction in terms of Al-Shabaab threat within Somalia.
We then embark on a patrol of the KDF soldiers. Our destination, Kismayu town. We're standing right outside this building in Pretoria Street, Kismayu in Somalia, where a fire incident occurred on the 4th of this month, and without the intervention of the KDF, this fire would have spread further to adjacent buildings and the losses would have been worse. The businessmen and women here, the Somali security forces and the residents appreciate the presence of the KDF forces.
He thanks twice and thrice again. And also you came at night and support the community of Jubaland, Kismayu especially. These people who lost their property. If could not ATMIS or UN support we got, this whole building could be burned and they could be fall down. She said it was successful for a long time after she got support from ATMIS and Jubaland community. If it is not KDF and we could not give it support, my friend, people will lose the millions of money will lost. And Somalia, they don't take money to bank. There is big safe in the building.
At the Syed Muhammad Abdullah Hassan International Airport, KDF has begun construction of the incoming traffic checkpoint that it plans to move from the initial location for security purposes.
Our role here is to support the UNIMAS to disrupt the smuggling in of explosive devices on the vehicles and in the airport.
ATMIS forces are capacity building the capabilities of the local government forces in this area for the subsequent handover of the security operations of this airport at a later time. Not far from here, we get a front row seat as Somali security forces witness a safely detonation of an explosive thanks to joint training with KDF and the United Nations Mine Action Service. The trainees here are appreciative of the training and believe that one day they too will be able to conduct such operations independently.
There was a lot of threats of IEDs and we have done and demolished those IEDs. We have done joint operation with the KDF.
We have been trained with ATMIS UNIMAS team as our trainer. They have equipped us with so many skills on matters concerning explosive materials.
Injured locals also get to enjoy treatment at this hospital run by the KDF as well.
One on the far end, unfortunately, was involved in a gunshot battle, got sustained gunshot wound onto the leg, that is the right leg on the calf. So we've been able to do some surgical interventions for him and is still continuing on treatment.
ATMIS hopes to be done with its operations and handover of security operations by the scheduled exit time of December 2024. The management, however, admits some challenges.
And we have not, despite numerous efforts by the African Union, by the United Nations as well, we have not been able to secure additional sources of funding from other partners, despite our efforts. So I think the partners have, the EU and the UK, have sort of reached a point where donor fatigue has set in, and they have made it known that they cannot continue with, to be the sole financer for the mission.
The capacity, as we speak, it is still low in terms of weaponry that can support huge operations.
Despite the challenges, ATMIS looks forward to continue supporting the Somali transition plan to its full completion. The Africa Union Transition Mission in Somalia is confident that by the time they hand over security operations to the Somali security forces, they will be properly equipped and well trained to be able to run their security operations independently. Yusufar reporting for KBC Channel 1 from Kismayu, Somalia.
Gigi Karaoke played a crucial role in the KANU elections that were necessary to confirm the transfer of power to Jomo's successor, President Moi.
has been in existence from the 7th century, making it rich with culture and history of a people set in a stone town in this age and time.
Kimeweka historia ya kuweza kustaarabisha watu na watu kufuata mila na desturi, ndio kila mmoja unaona anakuja Lamu, na Lamu ikawa imepata heshima ulimwenguni kwa UNESCO kwamba ni World Heritage Site, kwamba hii si majumba, ni kila utamaduni, kila kitu ambacho kwamba kilioko kwamba kinaonyesha kwamba hawa watu ni watu ambao kwamba wanajulikana katika historia yao ya ulimwengu.
Maulidi celebrations held annually in the county brings visitors and pilgrims to Lamu from far fields for recitals of praise poems, music and dances, calligraphy and art exhibits, doe and donkey races, swimming competitions, and finally a lively parade that wades through the narrow alleys of the town, lined by cheering crowds.
Na yote tunafanya ili kuvutia watalii, na unajua hiyo pia huwa ni kitega uchumi kwa watu wetu wa Lamu. Mahoteli yanapata biashara, mama mboga wanauza, wavuvi wanauza, wenye majahazi huwa kuna biashara ya kutembeza watalii. Kwa hivyo hizi sherehe huwa ni kitega uchumi kikubwa kwa watu wa Lamu.
Hii ni sherehe adhimu kwa watu wa Lamu, hususan kwenye masuala ya kiuchumi ama masuala ya kuenzi tamaduni zetu, haswa watu wenye kuogelea, wenye majahazi, mashindano, kwenye mambo ya mashindano ya punda.
The Islamic festival is held during the 3rd month of the Muslim calendar to celebrate the birth of Prophet Muhammad.
Hii ni moja katika kumbukumbu ambazo ya kuweza kila wakati wa mwezi huu ambao kwamba inakuwa ni mwezi wa 10, na huwa ni mwezi wa Kiislamu, ni mfungo 6 ambao ndio mwezi alozaliwa Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Kwa hivyo huwa tunasherehekea mazazi yake kwa kila mwaka ili kuweza kuweka kumbukumbu hizi za vizazi vitakapokuja.
The festival involves music, veneration and religious recitals. The residents take part in various community team building competitions such as swimming, doe and donkey races, hina competitions and tug of war.
Kwa leo tumeandalia mashindano ambao tumeweza kushindana, mashindano ya punda, yameweza kuandaliwa mashindano ya uogeleaji, mashindano ya mashua, mashindano ya kuhifadhi Qur'ani. Kwa hivyo hii yote ni katika njia ya kuleta ule utamaduni wetu sisi kama jamii wa Lamu.
The festival is accompanied by local traditional dances, and the Goma dance is the most popular. It involves men standing with walking sticks and dancing to the rhythmic drum beats. Another group of men stage a mock fight involving traditional carved Arabic swords, all dancing systematically to the beat of drums.
Goma la panga, hawa waitwa ni goma la siu. Kwa hivyo sisi ni moja katika kuona ile panga tunaoteza, kwa sababu itaonyesha kwamba ndiyo silaha ambao wazee wetu walikuwa wakipigana na maadui ambao ni Wagala, tumepigana na Portuguese, kwamba silaha zilikuwa ni hizi panga kabla hazijaja bunduki.
A night prayer vigil is also held around the mosque, alternated with chanting and narrating the life of Prophet Muhammad, accompanied by a song and dance session. On the last day of Maulidi, there is a procession of boys and men holding hands into the town. When they reach the town center, the crowd bursts into song and dance. The ceremony is inviting and visitors are allowed to join in. The residents compete and display awesome work in Swahili poetry, Quranic recitals, henna painting, board games, endo racing, cross-country racing, swimming and football. The donkey race is a major factor in the festival as the animal is a great symbol of Lamu's culture, and so this race is held in awe. Reporting for My Culture, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
History is beckoning. Ball down on the right side. Oh, Ricardo Horta didn't get to do anything with it. And it's Ronaldo who was setting it up, and the shot is carved, sets it up, and then Ronaldo did it even better for Joao Felix. Oh no, with that touch. That looks like magic. 8 minutes of added time, and Ronaldo almost changes the scoreline here from just a single touch. Ronaldo almost gets the better of Bono. A quick ball up at the front, in between two defenders. A fast touch and a shot towards goal, Jacob.
Bono again here stopping Cristiano Ronaldo from getting into the score sheet here. Bono has done a commendable job for the Moroccan side for sure.
Karibuni sana, karibuni. Niwauzie?
Ugali matumbo batia mimi.
Ugali matumbo!
Nilikuwa nataka kaomena na kadoma.
Omena nduma! Oya customer, usijali chakula yako tutakutengenezea kwa ajili yako tu.
Maisha yako, mapendeleo yako. Tunukiwa na Safaricom. Chagua bei yako ya kupigia simu au data. Piga *444# au utembelee My Safaricom app upate deal poa ya kupiga simu. Uongee zaidi au ubrowse zaidi.
Nataka chapati na crips.
Mala sausage. Nataka ugali na
Bakani, a 45-minute action drama, features a special intervention unit of the administration police.
Panther, medic.
This unit is dispatched to the front line in Wajir on the Kenya-Somalia border to deal with the threat posed by the notorious Al-Shabaab commander who is planning a major terrorist attack in Nairobi.
All I ask.
In each episode, the unit formulates and executes a mission based on intelligence received as they seek to thwart attempts by the Al-Shabaab to infiltrate the country and cause harm.
Pakani was commissioned to show a story of 6 officers working on our border on the north part of Kenya, and we've all had stories from there, we've all had news features. So as filmmakers, we thought this is a nice genre to try and go into because service work and family are very related.
This story talks about the police, the soldiers, the army, just being normal people going through everyday experiences, challenges. Apart from just being in uniform, when they're back to being the kawaida citizen, they also go through the same situations, same challenges, same issues that every single person goes through.
Produced by Foxton Media, the film director Victor Gatonya notes the hardest task was finding a lead actor who would bring out the authenticity of the film.
First thing was to get the right lead. We did strain him really hard, and he was quite cool. He was messed up by the end of the day, and he was very positive, and he walked out. And we all went there, we have a lead. So after we got Cloud, then getting the other characters was quite easy.
As an actor, Mpakani has really given me the role I've always wanted in life. I really needed to prove to myself, not just to the to guys, but to myself that I can actually do this, and it's actually something I really wanted to do. So yeah, I gave it my all.
I had to learn a different language I've never even spoken before, but I had to do it for the film. It was quite challenging to me, but I managed. I went through everything, and I got something good out of it. I loved it at the long last.
University. 1, 2, 3. The film industry has equally to good sides. It also has challenges. We live in a society where you have to prove yourself. So if you're in the film industry and you've never really gotten a chance to really showcase what you can do, it becomes hard to actually attract the right audience, the right boss in terms of the right production. So you can be good and you believe you're good, but if you don't have the platform to show that, it will take you quite some time before you can actually showcase what you have.
Our art scene post-COVID, it's produced more than ever. We've really done well. The movies that are coming out are really nice.
The series, recorded in Nairobi, Kiambu and Samburu counties, takes the audience through the lives of the officers while on duty by capturing the real-life situations they face daily. The show, in a special way, highlights the prowess of the specially trained units as they conduct a mission. Jacqueline Masharia for Cinemas and Theatre.
Exactly 6 minutes past the top of the hour. You're right in time for our second and last conversation of the day. We explore matters of leadership, governance, also looking at 90 days of President Ruto's time in office. And to help us converse around those issues and so much more is Professor Jacob Kaimenyu, who is the former Cabinet Secretary for Education, as well as also former CS in the Ministry of Land, Housing and Urban Development, also the immediate former Ambassador of Kenya to Belgium. Welcome to the program, Professor.
Thank you very much, Doreen, and the viewers, good morning.
Good morning to you too. Before we get to all that has been happening and also explore the 90 days of the 5th President of Kenya, let's begin by understanding more about you. And this is just in terms of life after retirement from public service. How has this been for you, Professor?
Thank you very much, Doreen, and a very good question. As you know, the former president appointed new ambassadors sometimes around May this year.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, I left Belgium, where I was the Kenyan ambassador, to Belgium, to the European Union, to what we call OCPS, that is the Organization of the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group of States. So I left there on that 30th of June, which means effectively I retired from government service on that 30th of June this year, having served the government for 44 years and above.
Wow, that's a wealth of experience.
Thank you very much, Doreen. Yes, it is a wealth of experience. You are wondering what I've been doing since then. What I want to say is that, Doreen, at my age, you enter what is called golden years of one's life. A time when you must enjoy your retirement. As they say, to do what you like, when and how. Because when you are an employee, whether in the private sector or in the public sector, you have to subscribe to certain rules and regulations. You'll be expected, for some of us who have served in government, very privileged, you'll be expected to serve the people of Kenya 24/7. Meaning that you can be called anytime and be answerable to so many things. But now that is over, it's behind me in the rain, when I decided, like others, to enjoy my retirement.
Yeah. So this moment you're just enjoying.
Oh yes. What I've done is to go back to Meru.
Okay.
Where I was born, and I'll majorly be there, not in the city, in the sun. And there's a good reason for that. When you're in rural setting, this is a place where you are born, you grew with certain people, a familiar territory, so to speak. But Doreen, you discover soon and very soon that when you're in the city, any city like Nairobi, can be very expensive.
Yeah, I hear you.
It can be very demanding. But if you go to Meru, maisha sio baya. Asante sana. So that's why I am doing my private work without giving you a lot of details.
Yes.
But I want my viewers to know that I'm tired. I mean, I've retired, but I'm not tired. And there are many ways of serving Kenyans. And I will endeavor to do that, to serve Kenyans as much as possible. For example, even through volunteering work. Because many of us believe you must be paid to serve Kenyans. No. You must be prepared to serve others without money.
I hear you.
Yes, and be prepared to receive blessings from the Almighty.
Thank you.
It has happened to many people.
Thank you. Thank you. I hear you. Now, since you're in that space, and you really quite mentioned a lot, and you're just going back to your home county and hometown and choosing to serve your moment there during, and also the different kind of things that you're doing in that regard. But also, your latest book, Life After Retirement. Give us pinches and the whole concept behind that.
Thank you very much again, Doreen, for that question. I want to indicate that this book was born out of experience personally, you know. And not only that, when I was in the government service, I did make some observations about people who have retired, who are about to retire, or who have begun their journey as employees of government. And the amazing thing, Doreen, is that majority of us, I realized, never planned for it. Never planned for retirement. Even when you are reminded a year before you retire.
We still don't plan for it.
My God, it's like it will not happen. When it happens, it hits you very hard.
Yes.
I'm saying this because some people, they from day one, they see as if, because they are going to retire when they are 60 years. You can imagine a scenario where you're employed at the age of 23 years after the university, or if you after Form 4, you are just barely 19 years. And you are seeing 60 years as very far. It is not. It is not. Because when you retire, you realize, contrary to expectations, there will be very many demands.
Okay, just hold it that thought right there, Professor. I mean, we are still on this particular conversation speaking with Professor Jacob Kaimenyu, who served in the Ministry of Education, also served in the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, immediate former ambassador of Kenya to Belgium. He's just talking to us about his recent and latest book, which is dubbed Life After Retirement. Of course, we'll tie this with also what the president has over time talked about. Remember when we talked about increasing of the NSSF kitty, NHIF kitty, what is also made within the provisions of Hustler Fund, where some money goes into savings, and this is about to also help you as a Kenya in your days and times of retirement. We'll tie all that down and try to see perhaps what we can do as a country and what you and I can just do to upscale on our savings, because then at the end of the day we won't be actively, serving in public offices. There's going to get a time where we'll retire, and so what next after that? Professor, you're just touching on how we are not prepared, and especially if you get employed while still very young, and you imagine that you retire at 60, at 70, and you're 20 something, and you're thinking, okay, I have like 40, 50 years, why am I planning for this?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, you must plan, as I said earlier on.
Yes.
Because just before that, let me give you a scenario why you need to plan.
Yes.
You will find that some people, before they retire, you are told a few, as I said 1 year before, you live with panic. And this in danger because what you haven't done, you ask yourself a very fundamental question, sometimes painful. When I retire, what will I do during retirement? What will I do? Because as I've said several times, when you retire, you may find like some people retired at the age of 55 in yesteryears.
Yeah.
And they retired with a pension of 12,000 shillings.
Yes.
In all fairness, in the rain, 12,000 shillings today.
Can't barely do much.
Surely, how much can it do?
Especially the high cost of living right now.
Yeah. And then the other thing is this. You must ask yourself, apart from that, because you need a side hustle.
Yeah.
What you should do. And you develop this very early. When you're employed like Doreen, you say, for example, besides being a broadcaster, besides being a marketer, besides being this or that, what is it that I can do as a hobby, as something that brings in some income stream to have additional income? That is what you should do. So that when you retire, you are not beginning something new, you are in a familiar territory, so continuity is easier. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
The other thing is that people don't ask some fundamental questions like, do I want to retire in a city? Or, for example, like me in Meru. And for me, I've realized many people, when you don't do that, there's chances that you will be very confused when you just retire. Because it's very important to plan and say, I will retire to go to Kisumu City, to Meru, and these are the good reasons.
And we don't ask ourselves those questions.
We don't. The other thing which we don't ask, to what extent, for example, must I involve my wife and my children in my retirement arrangement? You must involve.
So these are fundamental issues to consider.
Yes, you must consider those fundamental issues, because if you don't, somehow, somewhere, you get a shock of your life when things happen. And because they will.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. When you have grandchildren, great-grandchildren, when you retire, you realize, oh my God, I have some grandchildren whom I must take care of. Why? Because your own children are not able to take care of them. They do all manner of crazy things. Some have gotten even into substance abuse. They don't have the capacity to take care of your grandchildren. So you find yourself in a position where it demands that you educate them. And the other thing is that you might retire, again, without thinking about your health. Doreen, I'm sure you've seen your father, your grandfather. When you reach a certain age, for sure, a lot of things happen. You become frail, you become weak. There are age changes, and certain chronic diseases begin. Those diseases can make you a little feel as if you are failure, because you are not able to meet the costs. You can imagine if you are diabetic.
And at this point, you're not actively working.
Yes, you're not actively doing something. And if you want to be active, you might need to be a member of a club. If you never became one, when you're employed like you, I don't know whether you're a member of a club.
What do you do next? I hear you.
You must be a member of a club, if possible.
Yes.
Because you might not be able. If you are able to do it. Because you improve your social networks. You improve your interactive capacity with people who have been there. They have retired before you. And that's why we say it is the wearer of the shoe who knows where it hurts most.
True.
Because people give you pieces of advice which are invaluable. They will make you a better person.
I hear you.
Sorry for talking too much, but
I hear you.
I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. And since you're just around that particular bit of retirement, I also just want to pick your voice on a matter that is still ongoing. I know the courts sort of like halted that particular process. This is the NSSF Act of 2013. The last time it was reviewed was in 2001, from 160 to what we still currently contribute at 200. But the president has been so much on the fore trying to make sure that we sort of like increase that particular kitty from 200 to some good significant amount, at least 6% of an employee's contribution, and seeing the employer match that as well. And these are some of the things that he talked about, that when you continue upscaling our savings kitty, even as individuals, in your future years, it will also help as you retire. So what do you say in respect to this? Because again, also it has elicited quite the mixed reaction. Even as we speak, we still keep saying as Kenyans, we are dealing with high cost of living. How am I increasing my savings kitty, which will help me in the future?
In my view, that move by the government is brilliant. Oftentimes when you want to make change, whether at family level, at national level, people resist change, even when it's very good.
Okay.
In some countries, it's mandatory to save. Mandatory. Because it's common sense. And I've told you, many of us don't save. We find ourselves in a situation, in a space where you have saved nothing, and you have retired. So we have a scenario where people save a certain percentage of their income every month.
Yes.
It becomes very hard for a rainy day, for the things that can happen, and they will anyway. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So that is why I want to love the president's move. It's brilliant, and appeal to Kenyans to yield to such moves. Let's not criticize things for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Let's ask ourselves, what is the wisdom behind this? And when we talk, Doreen, of best practices globally, is this a best practice? Is it something which is done elsewhere? Is this something that you can emulate? If you ask me, I'll tell you yes. Are we together?
Yes, we are.
But because we are talking about a consultative government and a participatory government, I have no problem if the matter is going to the parliament, these are our leaders. I hope there will be wise council, and they will take the appropriate decision for the sake of Kenyans.
Okay.
Not being emotional. Because we have seen time and again people politicizing every move, not only necessarily this government.
Even things that are supposed to benefit Kenyans in the long shot.
Correct.
But also, do you think that perhaps maybe we as Kenyans do not understand the importance of that? Because even as talk about NSSF, there were still talks of increasing NHIF, and this was particularly from those that earn 100,000 and above, to see how we can increase on that. And again, also there's a report that shows that Kenya in the East African bloc has the poorest savings culture. We're talking about life after retirement, Professor. Do you think we do not really understand the importance and the need for savings in that regard? That maybe we should begin from trainings level to understand, then we can start beginning increasing on kitties?
Not that we don't understand.
Okay.
We might not appreciate.
All right. So we know, but we don't appreciate.
Yeah, Doreen, there are so many of us who know things.
Okay.
To know and to act is not the same.
All right.
So my appeal to Kenyans is that now that, because we know how important it is to save, let us do it. Let me explain.
Yes.
I have some employees, and we keep on appealing to them, pleading with them, please pay your NHIF. Because that 500 shillings that you pay, you'll be shocked, it will really help you. You want to walk into a hospital, Doreen, and receive treatment. It is very painful to find yourself in a scenario where your treatment requires only 3,000 and you can't afford. And for sure you can't afford, because money is
not there. And at that point you can't even work to get a salary.
Correct. So please, let us save.
All right.
Let us have a culture of saving. This reminds me of a book which I was given by my dear wife. It's titled The Billionaire of Babylon. And this billionaire, this individual used to save 10% of every earning. It doesn't matter what it is, over the years. And you'll be surprised, Doreen. If you do that, if you have enough discipline to do it, in many years, you'll be a millionaire, if not a billionaire. It will shock you. It should shock others. And even if you don't become a billionaire anyway, you'll be able to take care of the school fees of your children.
Yeah.
You don't keep on in freezers. You go up, hapana. Pesa iko, chapa iko.
You've just talked about discipline, and this has oriented my mind to think of the Hustlers Fund, whereby it is mandatory. Whatever amount you borrow, there's a 5% that goes into the savings kitty, where 70% of this goes into your long-term savings, and 30% goes into short-term. And perhaps just as you're talking about the government and the moves, maybe this is just one of those moves that at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, you will save it because it is for your own benefit. You will benefit after it's all said and done.
Again, this is a clever move. People might
by the government.
Yeah, people might not like it. I told you.
And they don't even as we speak.
Some may not like it. They may not understand it, but it's a clever way of one inculcating a culture of saving.
Yes.
And also forcing people to save.
Yeah.
Because it's in a common good. Are you seeing? Are you seeing what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yes.
The advantages are innumerable. So minasema serikali kivokea. Let them do that.
And even as talked about a life after retirement, and in your book, this has just constantly reminded me, because I mean, if you really have to have a good life and benefit in your retirement days, it's because of how you are able to save. In your days when you're working. Yes. Okay, let's now move to something else, Professor, and this will touch largely on education matters. This is because you also served in this ministry during the President Uhuru's first term of 2013. And right now we are currently seeing quite the reforms there in the education sector with CBC implementation, the presidential working force already presented that report to the president. What is your just take on us transiting from 844 to CBC? Much as we're already on that rollout, there's still quite the complex, I should say, mixed reactions among parents particularly. What's your take?
Yes, again, remember, Doreen, I said people resist change.
It still boils down to change.
When I was the Minister for Education in 2013, 2015, in the early stages of my ministerial duties, it came to my attention I discovered that we had not reviewed our curriculum for many years. So I worked ideas with UNESCO, and we did agree there was a case. There was a justification for us to review our curriculum. And I remember writing a cabinet memo for that purpose. Because I also realized that globally, some of the education systems were such that there was a lot of emphasis on competency-based education.
Okay.
What that means is that at any level, when you exit from school or from your education system, you must have certain competencies and skills that can make you survive. You understand?
Yes.
So that was the genesis of that review, that curriculum review. So that the CBC emphasized that bit, that when you're in school, by the time, if you're in standard 6, it is expected you have certain skills. Remember those days of the home science. You should be able to stitch, you should be able to cook certain types of food.
Yeah.
You may discover you are a great cake maker. And you can use that later for your future survival. You might also discover that you have certain skills in terms of maybe doing other things. Whether it is carpentry, those days used to be to do woodwork. These are the things. So that is very important. Therefore, what the government has done, to me, is very important, that transition. Of course, it's a challenge to say that we transit 100%.
Yes.
It's not easy.
Yes.
But I want to tell Kenyans, we must do our best and transit 100%. That's number one. Number two, the decision to keep the standard 6 as in junior secondary school, in primary school, in primary schools is a brilliant one.
The grade 7, 8, and 9?
Yes, we used to have intermediates and what have you. It's a familiar environment. All right? And in any case, you find that in our schools in Doreen, primary schools, we have people who have master's degree.
Yes.
As teachers.
Yes.
We have people with degrees. So it's not a big deal for them to start teaching in a junior secondary school. You see what I'm trying to say? So for me, that is okay. The other thing which was mentioned the other day, and there was an outcry, is the issue of banning is it where we
boarding schools. We'll come to that, Professor, momentarily. But before we get to that issue of banning boarding schools, let's just retract a bit and move back. And this is the issue of placing grade 7, 8 and 9. And I hear you've said that this is a good idea, which is also one of the things that Nat was lauding. However, Kupet still felt that maybe we should move them to secondary schools. And maybe you can just speak, you know, since you've been in this sector before, to those children or students, I should say, who really were prepared physically and mentally to now move to the secondary schools, because, you know, for them this was like a move. Anytime you do a national exams, which the exam was, there's always this idea that I want to move to the next stage, next phase, next area. But here I am, still in the same area that I was, yet I did a national exam. How does this speak to the psychology of this children?
Yes, two things to consider. No, you have a point there, Doreen. But let's talk about the exam first of all.
Yes.
Well, it is not all lost when you do an exam at any level. After all, exams are done at all levels, if you will, from one grade to another. Sure. It happens globally. And the whole purpose of having exams is to gauge yourself. Have you acquired certain knowledge to move from one level to another? So it's not lost. In fact, it will give them a lot of confidence that yes, indeed, they did very well.
But some felt like they're going to be ridiculed.
I'm coming to that.
Okay.
The other thing is that I want to tell these youngsters that in this world, in this life journey, circumstances will always change. And you must be prepared for that. Be prepared for change of circumstances as a human being, even though you are young. It is indeed they were looking forward to a different scenario, a different environment. But if in its wisdom, which was the case, the government found it necessary for them to remain there, and that was the opinion of the majority, by the way, then so be it. Of course, you feel disappointed that it has not happened. So it's a way of training even our own children. To appreciate the fact that you should accept change. You should not throw tantrums. It's like some kids who cannot fathom an idea where mom says no. Once she has said yes, or dad has said yes, it cannot be no. No. It can be either way. Right? Even though you are prepared to do something, it can change. Somebody said, it's Boutros Ghali, a former United Nations Secretary General, who said only a fool doesn't change. And none of us is a fool. We're not fools. So if the government finds it necessary to change for better, let us accept that change.
Why not?
Yes, why not?
I hear you.
Thank you.
So this runs down not just in the aspect of the education, the moving, but also for you as an individual.
Correct.
And it's going to help you grow into a good adult. All right, let's now shift to that issue of boarding schools and the whole idea of particularly having this same set, not in boarding schools, but in day schools. It's still a conversation. It was mentioned by the PS, Belio Kipsang, just the other week while they were in Mombasa during that KEPSHA, conference that they were having there with primary school heads. But the biggest question, Professor, has been, what about those students who, in their home setup, all they know and all they've ever wanted is to just be in that boarding school, because that's where they find peace, they find comfort, they can be able to learn, they find food. Now you're saying these children, because they are in grade 1 to 9, they should be in day schools. How are we dealing with that?
Yeah, Doreen, let's look at the merits and demerits.
All right.
But before we take that route, that trajectory, allow me to say this, that personally, I support that move.
Of having grade 1 to 9 in day schools?
You ban boarding schools. The only thing I would have liked to see happen is to involve as many stakeholders as possible in that decision, so that people own it, the parents, the pupils, the students own it. Because when you make a move without consultations, without inclusivity, it's likely to hit some headwinds. It is likely to make to have certain challenges, and this is what is happening, including editorials. You have seen some editorials about the whole move. Let me talk about the history of boarding schools, so that we bring to focus the merits and demerits. In the Western world, I was reading the other day, and it is very true, by the way. In Canada, to be very specific, in those old days of the missionaries, they created boarding schools wherever they went. And they wanted to bring the natives to a certain level of their development, of their culture. Right? In a very clever way, without telling the parents. Unaenda shule. When you're in school, you are taught Western culture, how to do the folk, how to do this. And that was not right.
In boarding schools?
Yes. The motive that time in boarding schools, and even now, by the way, it was not proper. When the missionaries came to this country, again, you remember, and Doreen, they did the same thing. They created boarding schools for the same purpose. You can indoctrinate. When we brought in Christianity to this country, part of that, I suspect part of that was the reason, by the way. Now, so let's look at the merits and demerits. When we look at the merit, let me start with maybe the demerits which you are talking
which you've
about.
Touched on, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, you are very right, Doreen, is saying that maybe you have been there already, for example, in a boarding school, and now all of a sudden you are told from next year, you go back home. That is a sudden change. That's not the best. So that's why there always should be a grace period, of when this will happen. Not a very short period, a reasonable period. That's number one. So that the people who are invested in those schools can make alternative arrangements. I hope you see what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
The other, of course, something which is very important is that, yes, at home, the environment may not be as conducive as it should be for certain children. Not conducive in what way. For example, Doreen, you will find yourself as a mother, I don't know whether you're a mother, but you may think, because you are too busy, in quotes, because you should never be too busy not to be with your children. You are too busy because you want to become a managing director of KBC. Therefore, you pass that responsibility to someone else to take care of that bit, your responsibility, or bring up your children in very sensitive formative stages. That's not proper. That you see the
and also that's what the government is trying to cure.
Yeah, we are coming to that because that's a merit. So for you'll be very happy. That's what I'm trying to say. You'll be very happy to see your children, And the other thing is that you want to use the teachers to educate your children. Of course, you can argue the teachers are more placed in terms of inculcating certain traits or certain aspects than you, which is true because they are educators. You are not an educator.
It's true.
Or educationist, but they are. So to that extent, you can argue that there is that merit that the children are in school, they are trained how to become more mature, more responsible citizens, and to do certain things. For example, when it comes to cleanliness, when it comes to waking up at a certain time in the morning, all those things, how to prepare your bed in a boarding school, you can argue that's the case. Why not saying prayers during prep time and all that? This is something that is positive. Let me go to the demerits now, because that's why I said I want to support it. The demerits are related to the merits in a way. I happen to be a Catholic and to be a member of what is called Opus Dei in Catholic Church. Opus Dei, Opus Dei is work from God, and we believe that you should be the best that you should be in life. If you are clean, be the best. In the Catholic Church, the philosophy and by even the policy, although you don't have to enforce it by force, is that during the formative stages, especially in primary schools, the children must be with their parents, so that you can inculcate in your children certain characteristics quite early. Doreen, I normally call a home a factory where children are molded to become future citizens. Children become who they see at home, not elsewhere, who they see at home. If they see cleanliness, orderliness, respect for human beings, they will practice it later. If you take them to a boarding school,
yes,
they might never see the mother for most of the time as a timekeeper, as someone who respects people, because you know from time to time you get visitors, your cousins, your aunties. How your father and mother treats those people is very critical. Your children need to observe that. And see, when I was young, my father used to say this, my mother used to say that, my father told me this and that. For example, I'll give you I am aware.
Yeah.
In certain situations where a young man will tell you, my mother taught me how to pray when I was 5 years old.
Not my teacher.
Not my teacher. And up to this day, I've always done it. Are you getting my point?
I totally do.
That is why it is important for us not to abdicate our God-given responsibility and give it to teachers. The teacher will not be as sensitive as you are, as you, the way you are. Yeah. You know, the beautiful thing with being a mother in an home environment, you can look, Doreen, you can look at your child and say there's something wrong today. There's something wrong. Where's the problem?
Exactly.
You see what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
But if you pass on that responsibility to somebody, they do not have that feeling. What I do know is that the 9 months that that child stays in a mother's womb, it is so critical. The mothers feel it. It is their duty, it's their responsibility, oh my God, to bring up these children in a loving way. That love cannot be substituted by taking children to
a boarding school.
Boarding school? No.
I can hear the passion
so
in which you're saying.
What I'm trying to say. So for me, therefore I support what the government has done.
Yeah.
But as I said earlier on, consultativeness, participation in dictates to our constitution is key, so that we are not blamed, or the government is not blamed for not having consulted enough to implement that which they must implement. And finally, when government does consultations, my view is that it is important to go by the wishes of the majority. They may not be necessarily correct. There will be some dissenting voices. But you can be sure, Doreen, chances are very high that when the majority say this is the way to go, they'll be right.
Professor, a classical scenario where a majority would say, now that you've talked about public participation, and it's one of the key things even in our constitution, so assuming that the majority says that we still want boarding schools to be there, and just looking at what you've outlined on merits and demerits, looks like the merits really, outweigh the demerits.
Agreed. But, the government has two approaches.
Okay.
Which is not easy under the circumstances.
Yeah.
And without being very specific. Sometimes there's something called benevolent dictatorship. Unahitaji kiongozi kidogo kona dictatorship.
To streamline things.
Someone who looks at things and says based on research of many years. It makes sense to take this direction. And you say, mupende, musipende, mutapiti hapa.
Regardless.
And they will later they will realize, oh my God, so and so was right. Are you getting my point? And I want to give you an example. When the late President Mwai Kibaki started free primary education, he faced so much resistance, and he listened to the naysayers. Today we will not be having free primary education.
It's true.
To the extent that Bill Clinton, the former president of America, came to see this president, this African president, who has started something very nice. You see what I'm trying to say? Then finally, if in the interest of the public, if the majority are saying no, you can say, vile Waswahili wanasema, wengi wape.
And see how it will go.
See how it will go, because now wakishindwa utawaambia niliwaambia nini. Asante.
Okay, I hear you. I want us to exit this conversation on education and move to something else. But before we get to do that, talk to me about the 30,000, because the government has pledged to this as well. Recruitment of 30,000 teachers by next year in January. In fact, as we speak, we're counting like, what is it, 2.5 weeks to January of next year? And perhaps the practicability of this, because bear in mind, some of these teachers will actually serve in the grade 7, 8 and 9. This is a new dispensation, I should say, because then you need perhaps a proper training to serve in this area. How practical will it be to recruit all these teachers by this short time and equip them enough to handle these students?
Well, somebody, Doreen, you can see this, you can look at this cup and see it is half full or half empty.
Yeah.
Let's say it is half full. That's a positive way of looking at it.
Okay.
When I was the Minister for Education,
yes,
literally every year we needed to recruit 10,000 teachers globally. If you want to have a viable education system, you must have enough teachers and invest in them, in their training from time to time. That's what should happen, so that they are in tandem with the latest ideas and practices, and so that whatever the impact on your children, it is current. That's another point.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that we should not be scared of this idea, oh my God, we are going to recruit that 1,000 teachers as if they came from nowhere. Two things you must remember, Doreen.
Okay.
These are people who have been trained in our institutions. So they have the requisite knowledge and experience. The only thing is that they have not been employed. Some have been out of job for years.
All right.
And it's painful.
I see your
There's
point.
nothing like having graduated as a graduate with a master's and you are unemployable. It's terrible because you are underutilized. The other thing we should remember is that yes, they might require certain training because there's a new dispensation in terms of structure and what have you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, when there has been a crash program, Kenyans are wonderful. They have stood to the test of time. It's a question of coming up with a crash program to empower these teachers and they will be okay. I told you as I conclude, out there, these people are not coming in from a vacuum. Some are teaching in private schools.
As we speak.
As we speak. They are teaching in private primary schools, in private secondary schools where they are paid a pittance to pay and graduate with a master's degree. In a primary school, private primary school, 6,000 shillings. That Doreen, is not tenable really.
Yes.
It's an affront to their dignity. So when I hear our government is going to employ more teachers, fantastic, most welcome. Sasa watakuwa na chapa kuliko walikuwa naye bereni. And that's good for the country. Yes. And if we, the ratio is very important, how many, we have international standards.
Yeah.
It is good to go by that ratio. It is important. Asante sana.
So then you're saying it's very much practical.
Yes.
Regardless of the time span.
Yes.
All right, I hear you. Now, let's talk about something else. You also served in the Ministry of Land, Housing and Urban Development. This is a matter that was very key in the former president's heart, or the previous regime, I should say. Also, it is very key in this regime. Just yesterday, during the Jamhuri Day celebrations, the president talked about 160,000 units. I believe, my memory serves me correct, at least by end of next year. And just when he took oath of office, we have seen him launch quite the number of projects on matters of affordable housing. Began with Mukuru kwa Njenga in Embakasi, went to Kibra, has gone to Homa Bay. Just last week, he was in Mavoko constituency in Machakos County. But my question would be, Professor, how then do we do this? Because in the previous regime also we had talked about 500,000 units. We didn't really get to that point, but at least something was done. So that what do we do so that then this becomes a matter that is not just a conversation, but it can actually be actualized? Because housing is very pertinent and key to Kenyans.
Two things, and I think the government is doing the right thing.
Okay.
It is going to involve the private sector seriously. Because even that time we talked about, I don't think we went to that extent. There is a private, public-private partnerships, which were supposed to, the triple P's,
yes,
which should have implemented. Again, I don't think we put a lot of effort into that. I see this president, I've worked with him for quite some time. I see him doing exactly that. The other thing I want to emphasize was what the former president used to tell me. This mentality that a house must be brick and mortar should we should do away with it.
Okay.
As long as a house is decent for one to live in. Hata ikiwa timba ni sawa. Matofari ni sawa. Although that's the matter, of course. You know, Doreen, I can go too far, and I will surprise you.
Yeah.
In those days when I was young, we used to have mud houses. What to me mattered then and even now is how clean that house is. It's not even the material. If your house is clean, ni sawa, something to cover your head. And the other thing which I know has been a serious problem is exaggeration of the construction costs in this country.
Exactly.
And it's a pity.
Yeah.
Where a house which is supposed to cost 3 million, you hear people talking about 5 million, 10, 20. I'm privy to the information, for example, the Great Wall apartments along Mombasa Road.
Yeah.
It's 3 million. You walk there, you find a house which is 3 million, 3-bedroom, Doreen, and it's a very good house, constructed by a Chinese company. So it can be done. And the government started some time back. Mine is to pray that it continues. And finally, we need to promote construction materials in this country and buy what is Kenya. We keep on saying, let's buy what is Kenya. That when you buy Kenya, you build Kenya.
Yeah.
So I want to tell Kenyans, wherever, if you are listening to me, don't buy something simply because it comes from Russia, from some other place. No. We have quality individuals here, quality products. Please buy them. That's one way of building others. That's one way of having even more jobs in Kenya.
Exactly.
Because when you abdicate that responsibility, you are promoting something elsewhere, which you should never do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, you just mentioned that as long as it's decent and good enough, which actually orients my next question, because oftentimes we have had those scenarios whereby government has, or the state has constructed these houses, but then you'll realize the same people to which they were constructed for, they don't stay there. And so the biggest question then had been, how affordable is it affordable? We are talking about affordable housing, you know, for Kenyans in that regard, but how affordable is it affordable? How do we bridge that?
Yes, you said something very important. First of all, it is important to bring experts on board.
Okay.
To come up with a model of an affordable house, taking into account, of course, the cost of living in the country today.
Yes.
Once you come up with such a house, then it is your responsibility to promote the idea of people buying that house. And secondly, to do what we said earlier on, inculcate the spirit, the culture of saving among Kenyans, so that which appears insurmountable, impossible, so to speak, becomes a reality. You know, Doreen, if in your mind you believe raising 3 million shillings is impossible, it won't be impossible.
Because you think it is.
Yes, you remember the president, William Samoei Ruto, the other day, was praising another person who was a security guard.
Yes.
Who got the house the other day. You remember that scenario?
Yeah, I do.
That is the way to go. It inawezekana. But some of us here, iko shida jamani.
So you need to start from that point.
Yes.
Okay.
Tuanzia hapo.
I hear you.
During COVID, some of these young people, I can see some of them were reasoning that to me. Today, during COVID, it's when the people realize, hey, there's a case for us to have a small house in Ushago, in the rural areas. Kwa sababu kinaweza kuumana in the city center, in towns, when nyumbani.
You must have.
Lazima uwe na something. Asante.
I hear you. I like that part that you say that it needs to start actually from your mentality, because then this has been a project. We've just talked about affordable housing in the previous regime. It is also a matter that features even in the plan. Correct. You know, Kenya Kwanza manifesto and what they are planning to do. So if you keep constructing these houses and Kenyans don't feel the need to stay there because something is, you know, not quite correct in their mentality, then we're doing nothing at the end of the day.
The other thing which I noticed when I was a minister, I was shocked in Ministry of Lands.
Yes.
I went and I was amongst the first minister to do that, to launch, to hand over government built houses in Kivera, the Kivera project. Oh my God, we went there under him, handed over the houses, very nice houses. I think I can't remember whether they were 2-bedroom or whatever. But to my dismay or shock, people rented them out to other people.
See, and that's why I was asking that.
No, this is why I said earlier on days we need to reorientate ourselves along the lines which I mentioned.
Yes.
But I want to tell Kenyans.
Yeah.
You also merit, you also deserve a decent living, a decent house. It should not be the case that you are living in a house in Korogosho, in some other places where you separate yourselves and your children with a kitamba, and living becomes very difficult. Confidentiality becomes very difficult.
It's true.
Tell yourself. This is what I call self-affirmation, even in my book.
I hear you.
Every day tell yourself, I'll do it.
I hear you.
I deserve to be this.
I hear
and
you.
it will be okay.
Thank you. And I can already hear my director saying that we need to exit this space, but I wouldn't want us to do that without talking about digitization of this land processes. And also, yesterday, while President speaking, he talked about digital economy and, the space that we want to move as a country in our economy in the digital side. So when you look at digitization processes, digitizing the land process, which also featured in this, budget, some good amount of money which had been put on that particular process, will this at least help us as a country moving forward when it comes to acquiring land, buying land, getting houses, moving to that dispensation?
It is, of course, I support it.
Yeah.
Before I left as a Minister for Land,
yes,
I came with a cabinet memo on digitizing all land records in Kenya.
All right.
And the cost that time was 17 billion. 17 billion that time. We talk about 4.5 years ago. I would imagine this is higher now.
Yeah.
Is there some wisdom in digitization? Why not? That's the way to go. And in fact, the reason why the first term of Jubilee government, the idea of laptops in primary schools was to make our people ICT savvy for obvious reasons. So digitization is the way to go, because what you do, and I've said it so many times, when you digitize your services, you minimize face-to-face interaction, right?
Yes.
You minimize corruption. You have no opportunity to Batiana's chapa do something underneath there.
True.
That's one thing. And the other thing, we improve efficiency. Time-years approach to doing things. So it's brilliant. I support it. Let us go that way. But what I want to tell Kenyans, please invest in yourself. Go back to school, become IT literate. Not to have people look at you now, even to hold a mouse.
Yes.
Asante.
The president just launched, a 16 module for Kenyans who were there yesterday. Nonetheless, thank you very much, sir, for your time. There's a lot we could have talked about, including Ruto's 90-day in office, but because we are strapped for time, we have to conclude at this point. Nonetheless, thank you so much for your insights and inputs. Highly appreciated. I have been speaking to Professor Jacob Kaimenyi, who is the former Cabinet Secretary of Education, as well as also former CS of Land, Housing and Urban Development, also the immediate former ambassador of Kenya to Belgium, of course, talking to us on matters of leadership, governance and way forward as a country. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately good morning, Kenya. Till tomorrow, good morning.